On June 2023 at 7:07 p.m. Board members in attendance are Alicia Hayes, Gordon Laper, Michelle Shu, and myself, Maya Rabasa. Please join Superintendent Dye as he leads us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Superintendent Dye. Now I will read the land acknowledgement. The Eugene School Board would like to acknowledge that our institution sits on the homelands of the California people. In the treaties of 1851 and 1854 to 1855, and the subsequent forced removals of many Indian people from Western Oregon, some of the Calapooya were moved to the Grand Ronde Reservation, and some were moved to the Silas Reservation. It is important to note that all of Wayne County was an important trading and gathering area for cannabis and other resources, and continues to be. During the Restoration era from 1977 to 1989, Wayne County was designated as the service area for the Confederated Tribes of Peace, Lower Umpqua and Sayuswa Indians, the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Indians, the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, the Coquel Indian Tribe, and the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Indians. Eugene School District acknowledges that the descendants of original and service area inhabitants of this land are still here today. They are thriving members of our schools and our communities. Countless members of other tribes now also call our community and schools their home. We wish to thank those original stewards of this land, and we as fellow stewards of this land wish to remember that we need to take good care of this land and take good care of all the members of our school district community. Now we jump into our meeting. First up on our agenda is to receive reports from high school representatives. I want to give some kudos here to Dr. Ting and Parker, who are here with us for our last meeting of the year. We'll believe it's just the two of you, so if one of you wants to jump in. Okay. All right, it's like that thing.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophie Smano and I just graduated from Churchill High School. Thank you. I wanted to just say that this whole school year has been a lot for Churchill, but we got through it and we've done a lot of spirit weeks. We've done a lot of collaborations with clubs. BSU did a lot of collaboration, so as LSU, Asian Islanders, and GSA, and this year has been pretty good. We managed, and yeah, it's been a roller coaster year, but we've enjoyed some things that we've done as well. And yeah, thank you everyone.
Hi, I'm Parker Anderson from North Eugene High School. I think, yeah, there's been some ups and downs this year for sure, but we've gotten through it. And I think a lot's been like, you know, the worst, there's going to be a lot of change this next year with the new building and the new schedule and everything. You know, I think we made it through thinking about it, and I think next year we'll make it through doing it. And a lot of that anxiety is not being there yet and not seeing that. But I think we'll adapt, we'll figure it out, and we'll overcome whatever challenges we face next year. I think a lot of what we talked about here, I talked about the last meeting, and so I would like highlight two parts of like that I didn't want to get like overshadowed by the fact that there was quite a bit talked about. The big thing is that there was a question for a lot of students about what will happen to some of the memorials we have on campus and the totem pole that's up front. As like, you know, we have a few memorials to students who passed away on campus, like while they, or not on campus, sorry, who while they were students at North Eugene High School, like and those memorials are on campus. And we like the totem pole up front, and since we expressed like wanting to know if there's any possible way that those things aren't demolished in school. And just like bring that to your attention. I think that is, yeah, I think that's most of all I really appreciated being here this year, and I'm excited to come back next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Parker. Next up on the agenda, we have an agenda review. Are there any questions, changes, or corrections to the agenda anyone would like to request? Okay, and we move on to an introduction of guests and our superintendent's report. Superintendent Dai, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate everybody coming and listening. Tonight is our final board meeting of the year and the final meeting with this current configuration of board members. Two of our board members, Michelle and Kirti, are departing after a year, having dedicated considerable time helping this district emerge from the grip of COVID era protocols, hiring a superintendent, and work its way through some of the challenges. I want to emphasize considerable amounts of time. We very much thank you for what you've offered. Another, Gordon Lafer, dedicated considerable time over the past 4 years to help the district in many ways, both pre and post-pandemic. Another member, Alicia Hayes, has dedicated more than 16 years of their lives to serving this community as a member of the school board. As the superintendent of the district, I cannot overstate my gratitude to each of you. As a parent, however, in this community, my gratitude goes even further. When my children were younger and first entering school, members of the school board at that time, and you were among them, Alicia, had no idea who I was. But that did not matter. You still worked as hard as you could to make certain that this district was able to meet my child's needs and partner with me as a parent. As a first-time parent of a school-age child, I needed that partnership more than I knew. Now that I know how much is involved in being a school board member, I want to take a moment to express my appreciation and respect for each of your contributions to this community. I do not have to tell you that being a member of the board comes with some challenges, some frustrated constituents, and at times circumstances beyond your control in which decisions must be made based on what option is most likely to do the least amount of harm. There is no doubt each of you have people who think you're doing an excellent job, with others who might be thinking differently. And while everyone does not always arrive at the same conclusion about the best course of action to take in a given situation, I want you to know the district recognizes the challenges associated with the role that you play, and we really appreciate the sacrifices and investment that you have made in this community's future. Looking back on the year, I'm grateful for each person in our system who locked arms with a colleague in support of our students. Whether in the classroom, the cafeteria, front office, facilities, transportation, or district office, one thing that remains beyond question is the deep commitment to providing exceptional educational opportunities for students in Eugene School District 4J. This year, we've accomplished a great deal. There were some big changes. Some you referenced, Parker. We have a new secondary semester schedule, a new value-driven classified labor agreement reflecting the essential role our classified colleagues play, and a reorientation of our resources in an effort to provide additional support to schools. We're also celebrating the opening of a bond-funded expansion at Gillum, a new Edison Elementary School, and are putting the final touches on what will be the first new comprehensive high school in the last 50+ years in this district. None of the accomplishments above and the many others not mentioned were possible without the hard work, ideas, and dedication to follow through of so many across our district. It's been my honor and privilege to work alongside you during my first year as superintendent. For those in the community not professionally connected to the district, but supported in so many ways, I want to express my gratitude as well. For every conversation in which you supported the district, every time you volunteered or stopped for a school bus while it was loading students, every time you hired a student looking for a job, every time you hung a poster in your business window, every time you came to an elementary school performance, attended a sporting event, donated resources, or just waved at students waiting for the bus, we offer our thanks. Schools are at the heart of this community, and we appreciate your support in making them great, welcoming places. Knowing there's always room for refinement and growth, I close out the first year with satisfaction that we're on the right track. Thank you, students and staff, and I look forward to working with you to meet the expectations set by our community. While for some today ends our formal time together, I remain thankful to each of you for your insight in the past year and look forward to new and expanded relationships moving into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent Dai. Next up on the agenda, we have items raised by the audience. The school board receives written comments by email at board@4j.lane.edu and sets aside time in each regular board meeting to hear public comment. Community members can sign up to speak to the board by submitting their request online at 4j.lane.edu/board/public comment or by contacting the superintendent's office. The deadline is the Monday before each meeting. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes and cannot give their time to another speaker. A timer on the screen known as the blue sky timer will count up, indicating when your time is up. Speakers may offer objective comments or criticism about district operations and programs. For complaints about individuals, including district staff or board members, the district has a board policy and complaint process. Please contact the superintendent's office at 541-790-7707 for more information about submitting a formal complaint. Please mind the time limit and the expectation of behavior. Tonight, we have 10 people signed up to speak. Debbie will introduce you. Debbie, can you introduce our first speaker?
Yes, I can, Madam Chair. Our first speaker signed up is Allison Johnson, who was supposed to be online, but I do not see her. I'm right here. She's right here. But it said Zoom. Sorry. Good evening, my name is Allison. I'm a YG teacher and a parent in the 8th grader at Kelly. Tonight I want to speak to the solutions for the Kelly YG co-location. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Last week at the North Vision Committee, 3 options were given going forward. Number 1, continued co-location with $11 million to renovate. Number 2, moving to the education building on Monroe with renovations temporarily to Willard. Or number 3, moving to Willard with the entire K-12 program to the South region. As a parent and educator, I realize that it is likely that this evening you may have already made up your minds, and that the opinions of staff and parents may ultimately have little bearing on what you choose, whether it's due to budget or pressure from other groups. Tonight I ask you base your decisions on what's best for our students and the commitment that has been made by this board to make both programs whole. As a staff, we're worried about how such drastic changes to the program may affect our current families and the number of new students coming into the program. With the first option, continued co-location, we know that many at Kelly have stated they want their school back. Although we believe that co-location is not ideal and that there are several issues to solve with the current building, this money would go a long way in mitigating those problems. More separation between the 2 programs, modulars to expand on YG side while giving the call back to Kelly, separate offices and cafeteria spaces, a new unified school name, including others. The problem, however, is that YG is not wanted there, and this has been voiced time and again by a few vocal people. How can we be expected to thrive in a place we don't even feel welcome in? If you choose the North Monroe site, we're concerned that having to move Willard and then again when it's finished will be devastating for our program. Most North families have said they may leave the fast bus or drive across town for 2 to 3 years. This option could work if we're able to stay at Kelly until the work on the Monroe site is finished. It would also save the district the headache of having to bus students across town. Another concern is funding. A previous estimate showed the site would cost over $30 million to renovate, but this time we only have $11 million left in the bond. This must be fully funded. We would need green space, a gym, auditorium, cafeteria, and classrooms. If the levy is proposed to cover this, what happens if the levy doesn't pass? Finally, the Willard site. I struggle with this one because it goes against everything I believe is being right and equitable for North families and the community at large. The South region doesn't need another alternative program, the North region does. North parents have stated clearly they would not be able to continue to YG if we moved. We would lose the economic and racial diversity that we currently value so much in our program. Many of us are worried that if we move to the south side of town, we cut off this opportunity for so many who can't make the commute. If the board chooses this option, you must commit to not cutting the program, staffing back and those students. The district must commit to transporting students already in the program to the Willard site until they matriculated out. This will result in the least amount of harm, as you've stated, Mr. Guy. None of these options are great, but we'll survive and hopefully thrive with your support. Thank you for your time, and thank you for finally committing to giving us a long-term plan for YG. Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Jenny Kennedy, followed by Georgianne Jones. Hello. As the district prepares to update the policy on restraint and seclusion, I'm here to share a little insight on this topic. I am the mother of a blind and autistic young man that was restrained and secluded in 4J schools hundreds of times when he was a child. I am also a family support specialist and disability justice advocate who has been contacted by both parents and staff this year with reports of concern around the use of seclusion and restraint in our schools. I have heard of children in life skills classrooms being dragged around by their arms against their will, and I have heard of adults holding doors shut to prevent children from leaving a room while ignoring the child's attempts at interaction, and then claiming that this was not seclusion. Not all of these incidents are documented, and not all children have the communication skills to report to their parents what is happening at school. So please be aware that there is still work to do. We have made much progress since the days when my son was being restrained and secluded daily, but I still see some of the same mistakes being made that caused my son so much trauma. The policy states that restraint does not include assisting a student to complete tasks if the student does not resist the contact. This doesn't feel trauma-informed to me. Sometimes a child may not feel safe to resist. Assisting students by using underhand support is an alternative that is less likely to lead to restricted movement, trauma, or force. My son was traumatized by hand-over-hand forced compliance training in an educational setting, so I know how intimidating this can be when done wrong. For him, being mishandled led to more challenges later down the road, which brings me to the next piece of the policy that I feel needs some attention. It specifies that restraint does not include holding a student's hand or arm to escort the student safely and without the use of force from one area to another. I know that many of the unsafe situations my son ended up in at school started with someone putting their hands on him without warning. This was often done by well-intentioned staff. Being grabbed was one of his biggest triggers, and for years this action would have put him into fight or flight, creating a much more dangerous situation than the one they may have thought they were going to prevent moving forward. This known trigger was well documented and brought up at meeting after meeting, and yet it continued to be a default action taken by staff when they thought they needed to move him along a little faster, or even if they thought they needed to intervene so that he wouldn't run into something due to his visual impairment. There are definitely times when physical intervention becomes necessary to keep people safe. This is a fact, but it is also true that we can work really hard to be really intentional and mindful about how these policies are being implemented in real life. Later down the road, my son ended up with a traumatic brain injury after being triggered when his EA grabbed his arm. The school staff then decided to step back and take a hands-off approach and watched as he slammed his head into a brick wall for 20 minutes. That can't be the answer either. I understand that this is a very complicated topic. I also understand that years of inappropriate interventions led up to that incident, which could have cost my son his life. We need to work upstream from restraint and seclusion. We need to focus on removing power struggles and promoting positive relationship building in schools. We need to understand neurodiversity and sensory challenges. This will all be part of the work moving forward, and I thank you all for being here for it. Thank you, Ms. Georgianne Jones in the audience.
I'm grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm an EA in special education and managing restorative practices program here for 2 years in District 4J and serve in OSCA. There isn't enough time to report on the restorative practices program in 3 minutes, but we could at another time. In 2021, I wrote for an AFT Innovation Fund grant awarded to OSCA as the affiliate holding the grant, with me as the program manager, highly qualified to carry this out. We asked 4J to be the school district used to build the restorative climate and program, and our prior interim superintendent agreed, and there was much support in moving forward in training employees of the district, mainly classified, but also others, because in this work, it is necessary to include everyone. On December 15, 2021, this board voted unanimously to match $50,000 for us to continue our work. This was monumental, and one component was for us, those of us who were participating in trainings and those of us who were also working as trainers to be compensated for our time outside of the work that we were also doing in the district in our other jobs. So moving forward, we've trained about 90 district employees, many classified, but also an administrator and some teachers. And again, we're not leaving out anyone. Our participant evaluations strongly voice that participants want more of this. They hope administrators will learn more and allow time for us to use circles and conferencing tools. Last August, we met with Dr. Dye to tell him about our efforts and the work that we had done the first year. He told us he didn't know about it and to keep him informed. We have not spoken to him since then. This year has been difficult, with no pathway and easy access to our district funds. There was no other communication and no clear communication. Here, I moved to another experience in my life. Another difficulty for me this year was when I had an injury outside work and had to stay home for almost 2 weeks. I was provided a doctor's note to return to work, and I was denied an interactive process to discuss it. I was told that I couldn't come back and that I was to stop all work, including the work that I was doing in the restorative practices program, and including any work from home at all. This was a big upset, as you can imagine. That hurt. My goal all the time is for all of us to work together. What we need to know is, will anyone speak to me and my associate now, Melanie Namkun? Does 4J want our restorative work to continue? This process of communication has moved to a degree of undervaluing employees and causing division when intent is for unifying and for more equity. It seems we need to have some more restoring. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kelly Stroh, followed by Russ Soder.
Hi guys. You've seen me before. So I'm going to talk about, as you know, the 850 Howard situation. I'm going to follow up on what Allison said. And so last Tuesday, the day before the school got out, we got dropped with our 3 choices. So as a YG community, our number one thing we want to do is stay in our region, period. You built this new high school, don't take away our only choice school from the region while you do it. Our top choice would be to come here. Leave us at Kelly until it's done and then bring us here. That's fine. We don't have a home. We were displaced and there's not necessarily a great solution. But we all strongly said, we don't want Willow. We get it's the easiest financial choice. We get it's the easiest choice. You asked for community input, so please hear our community input. Across the board, it was no Willard. From the beginning, it's been no Willard. It was keep us at North. 33 years. This is our anniversary shirt of our 30th year anniversary years ago, before COVID. We're a strong program. We're a really strong community. We're strong for North Eugene. We want to go to that new North High School. If you move us to Willard, though, that can't happen. You take that whole program out because there's no way you can split the program and keep it. We're the first ever Japanese immersion school. So I know you guys are gonna make whatever choice you wanna make. We don't have any control. You keep saying, trust us, trust us, trust us. We're gonna do what's best. I don't know. We'll see if we can trust you by the end of the night. We have struggled to trust. Trust has not been something you guys have shown at this point. Telling us the day before our students walk out, these are your 3 options. Stay at Kelly, which we'd love to do, but Kelly obviously needs more space. A small faction of their staff have voiced that very loudly. Now we know that's not what a lot of people think. We've talked to a lot of their staff, friends with a lot of their staff. A lot of them would love for us to stay there. We get though that this is maybe not the best choice, and it probably was from the beginning. We all know that, 6 years now in the making. But know that we're a North Region program. We want to stay in the North Region, and we can't be drug all over the place. Leave us at Kelly, bring us here when it's done. Fine with that, then great. We're not picky at this point. We've been trying to compromise. We've thought of a million solutions and been told why most of them won't work. So dropping 3 choices on us when we weren't expecting it, when we're supposed to be investing in our students, who you guys say is what this is all about and why we're here, was really hard. It made the last day of school not what I wanted the last day of school to be, and not what most of the staff wanted it to be. So make all of our struggles, all of our stress this year, all of our late nights and our meetings on our own time, and everything we've done, all of these families that keep showing up with their kids, make it worth it to them. Show us that you're listening to us and not just to Kelly. The hard thing is we're all kind of one, right? We'd like to stay all one. But if you take it and sever that, this pen you gave us at the beginning, better together, 21-22, doesn't have as much. So I just want to say, we are YG. Please respect YG, but we're also part of Kelly, and we'd like to say that. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Roscoe Karen. I'm a retired 4J middle school teacher and a member of CAPE. Members of the board, I'd like to express my thanks to the board members for whom tonight is their last meeting. Thank you, Alicia Hayes, for your many years, your thousands of hours of consistent service, including your hard work on behalf of school bond measures. Thank you to Michelle Shu and Kirti Ajia Kaufman for your time and service on the board. You brought integrity and necessary frames of reference. Your contributions were of significance and of great value. And thank you, Gordon Lafer. 4 years ago, you were elected to present a different vision of what education should be and whose voices should be heard. For your first 2 years, your proposals routinely did not carry the day, not even close. But you didn't give up, and the tide eventually turned. Thank you, Gordon, for your vision in knowing that classified workers, members of the OSEA, deserve the human respect marked by being paid family wages. For your vision in knowing that librarians are essential to a healthy, joyful, and well-rounded education. Thank you for your vision in seeking effective and pragmatic ways to make equity goals come to life in our schools. Thank you for your vision in seeing that teachers deserve First Amendment rights and professional respect by being allowed to speak candidly to parents about standardized testing. Thank you for your vision in respecting the rights for educators to speak frankly to board members at their schools without risk. Thank you for your vision in support of students' rights to observe all religious holidays. Thank you for your vision in supporting student activists advocating for access to menstrual products regardless of family income. Thank you for your vision in knowing that the leadership of the EEA and OSEA deserve to be truly listened to in the decision-making process because they reflect the pulse of education workers from across the entire district. Thank you for your vision in knowing that the Kelly and YG communities of parents, students, and teachers were correct and speaking out against the district's overcrowding plan. You changed the narrative, Gordon. My hat is off to you. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Karen. Our next speaker tonight is Amanda B.S., followed by Larry Lewin. Hello, thank you for the time to speak. I'd like to thank Alicia, Gordon, Kirti, and Michelle for their service on the board, and I'd like to give special thanks to Alicia, as I know she's finishing a 16-year service to 4J and has brought many strong changes and adjustments to our district and community, and has served our children really well. One way in which I've observed her service is in being very intentional about communicating with others from multiple points of view. This topic is what motivates me to speak tonight, and I come with a big ask. I'd like to request that we create a culture that allows for different thoughts to be shared and for people to feel dignified. Recently, I witnessed a myriad of public comment, and what I hear consistently from every single angle is a deep desire for our kids to be safe and achieve academic excellence. And sometimes it's stated very loudly or angrily or sadly or like well put or poorly put or fearfully or calmly. I've been really disappointed when parents share about legitimate concerns only to have their points dismissed and invalidated. Have you ever gotten into an argument with a significant other? You're trying your hardest to explain how their actions affected or hurt you in a negative way, only to have them look at you and be like, I didn't say that, I didn't mean that, or some rebuttal. And what you're really looking for is for validation of how their actions may have impacted you. This is called active listening. I'm sure that's not new to anybody. But I just think there's a big difference between placing blame and being aggressive versus sharing how actions affect someone. So I'd like to see our board respond to fears and concerns and requests with an openness to one's experience and encourage our public to do so as well. If we can provide a space that's void of name calling, we can have more positive impact on our community and students. Because the reality is that we are stuck together. Just like a family, we have to figure out a way to get along because here in Eugene, most of us are probably in this for the long haul. We can remain divided, assuming ill intent, calling names, being defensive, or we can unite together and begin to see each other as humans cut from the same cloth. There is more that unites us than divides us. The concern for trans kids feeling accepted is a real concern. The concern around mental and physical health for detransitioners is a real concern. The concern for safety and equality for girls is a real concern. The concern for our families that didn't get vaccinated yet still want to participate in this world is a real concern. The concern for our deaf community that struggled to read lips when masks were on, that was a real concern. The concern for our families with children that had medically fragile, with medically fragile children during COVID, that was a real concern. People that identified with all these different scenarios are not bigots, they're not anti-trans, they're not anti-conservative, they're not anti-anything. They're people that love our people and want what's best for them. So I'd like to request that you guys begin to create, and it has become a bit, but if you could really instill a culture that allows for different thoughts to be shared and for people to feel dignified. Thanks. And Mr. Larry Lewin is next, followed by Sylvie Keller Glaston.
Larry Lewin, retired 4J teacher, member of CAPE, Community Alliance for Public Education. Thank you, board members and Superintendent Andy, for this opportunity to speak to you and to the public. And thank you for your service to our community. And especially thank you to the departing school board members. To Alicia Hayes, thank you for your 16 years of service. I often disagreed with your analysis and votes, but I always appreciated the times we talked. Dialogue is important, especially civil and productive dialogue. Best wishes to you, Alicia, and best wishes to your successor, Tom DiLiberto, our first classroom teacher ever to serve on the board. And thank you to Michelle Shu. For your year on the board, you stepped up at a very difficult time and brought dignity, wisdom, and important perspective. Your contributions were significant and important, and congratulations to your successor, Morgan Monroe. And thank you to Timothy and CJ Kaufman for her year as well. She arrived at a contentious time, worked hard to achieve progress during a personally demanding time. We thank her for stepping up for our community, and best wishes to Jenny Jonek, who will take her seat next month. Thank you to Gordon Wafer. I was here 4 years ago, almost to the day when you were sworn in to join this board. You ran and were elected to help change it, and change it you did. Not in your first year. I remember lots of 6-1 and 5-2 votes with you in the minority. Same with the second year, but you persisted. You kept bringing up the issue of minority religious holidays. It took months and months and months to get people to agree with you. You got it done. Same with the student request for free menstrual products and school building restrooms. It took a long time. You never gave up. Same with the teachers' rights to speak honestly to parents about standardized testing. Same with your right as a board member to visit schools, to meet with staff without the superintendent's approval. Same with funding for new elementary teacher librarians. Many times the answer was we can't afford it. You never gave up. Same with your requesting for portable classrooms for Kelly Middle School to help ease the crowding when the YG school merged. Our former superintendent told the board they weren't needed, that there was room in one school, one building for 2 schools. You didn't give up. You finally convinced your board colleagues to vote for those portables, small but important, and the Kelly YG community noticed and appreciated your support. You made a difference here. Not easy, never easy. I congratulate your successor, Rick Hamilton, and wish him the best on the board. We thank you, Gordon.
Our next speaker is Zoe Gladstone, and she is via Zoom. And she'll be followed by Carolyn Howell. Go ahead, Zoe.
Classic Zoom problem. Okay. Hi, I'm Zoe Gladstone, and I am the parent of 4J students, and I'm here tonight to voice my support for LGBTQIA students and policies in 4J. And I'm just going to use the word queer. In our family, that's a loving, inclusive word, and it's faster. So I have a kid who identifies as non-binary and trans, and they have received some wonderful gender affirming care in 4J. And I feel like sometimes when we're talking about gender affirming care, the care part is de-emphasized. And I just wanted to emphasize that and be specific about what that looks like in 4J in my experience. And this is care as in, defined as feeling warmth or investment, affection, kindness, helpfulness. And here are the ways I've seen it show up for my kid in 4J. There are classroom and school libraries with diverse characters and storylines in terms of gender, race, life experience, and situation. My kid has been able to join GSA and is in the presence of teachers who are out. And one of the important things about having teachers feel safe enough to be out is it shows kids that there is a future for you, that you can grow to be an adult and what it could look like with the people that are most important to them and in their everyday lives. When I walk into my kids' school, there's pride flags and anti-bullying messages. And yes, those are just symbols, but they're there. It's a safe enough place to have those things. Staff and teachers respect my kids' pronouns and their chosen name, and the process for changing my students' name and pronouns was very simple. There are also gender neutral bathrooms, though I think my kid would want me to say there could always be more and they could be more accessible. But the fact that there are any is important. There are pride events where I see that my kid experiences joy. We all want our kids to experience joy. We want our kids to survive and experience joy. And, even if people, if someone's kid did not survive and they disagreed with me or did not have the same love for trans and queer kids, I would be devastated if their kid died. And I know that they would be devastated if I lost my kid. We want our kids to survive. And even more than that, experience joy. And, all of these things create a safe and also joyful experience for my kid. And I have more belief that they're going to make it to adulthood. And nothing can make me happier. Nothing can make me happier than that my kid is going to survive. I also just want to say that when kids can be safely out at school, then they can support each other, create a community, have joy, and have a better chance of survival. And I never thought that I would enjoy having a teenager so much. I had no idea how joyful it could be to have a teenager. I have two. And I think one of the things that makes it so joyful is knowing that they're safe at school and knowing that not only are they safe, but they can experience joy with their big posse of queer friends. So I just want to say thank you for your service and thanks for the things you put in place to make this possible.
I'd like to say thank you to the school board for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I would like to say thank you for supporting Eugene Gatlin. My daughter Haley just completed kindergarten and is getting ready to go into first grade at Eugene Gatlin. And I think she would like me to share that her favorite part of going to school is that she gets to learn both English and in Japanese. I value that her developing mind is going to have a more expanded worldview than I could otherwise give her. When I was in college, I took an elective class on women writers in Japan because I had heard that the first person in history to write a novel was a Japanese woman in 1000 AD. And 4 years later, I graduated with a minor in Japanese languages and literature. During that time, I learned two important things. I learned that we are all more alike than we are different. And I learned that my worldview had been sharply molded by the culture in which I was raised. And that truths I had thought were universal were not necessarily shared by the rest of the globe. I went on to work as a nurse at Georgetown Hospital in Washington, D.C., where I cared for a very diverse patient population from many cultural backgrounds, and I was able to respect their views on life, illness, and death, which are different from my own, which have been diffused through a Western lens. I want to applaud the 4J School Board for their broad-mindedness and for embracing cultural diversity in such a concrete way as through the support of this program. In order for the school to thrive, I believe that it needs two things: to stay in North Eugene and to have its own dedicated space. Whether that be co-located on property with another school, it does need to have its own cafeteria, classrooms, performance space, gymnasium. Again, I want to say thank you to the school board, those present and those for decades past that have supported this program. It's more than a language immersion program, it's a cultural immersion program. I do think that if there were more programs like this, the world would be a better place. It's more than a bullet point on a college application or on a resume. And I hope it lives on for many years to come. Thank you. And our last speaker tonight is Hansel Sue. Looks like Hansel Sue is not here, so that concludes our speakers.
Thank you to everyone for taking the time to share your perspectives and hopes and appreciations. Thank you. Now we move on to comments by employee groups. Sabrina, are you ready?
Thank you, Megan. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Sabrina Gordon, and I am president of Eugene Education Association. Since this is the last school board meeting of the year, it seems like a good time for appreciation, which we've heard a fair amount of tonight. This appreciation is something that helps us cultivate trust in each other, which is why it's so important. I appreciate your work this year in guiding our district and supporting 4J students and educators. I especially want to acknowledge those of you who are stepping down after tonight's meeting. Michelle, Kirthi, Gordon, and Alicia. Whether you've served for 1 or 4 or 16 years, each of you has made a significant impact on students and staff. I hope that as you reflect upon your time on the board, you will remember moments when your efforts to improve 4J aligned with the efforts of other stakeholders, such as the approximately 1,000 members of EEA. In these moments, when our goals and efforts align, our potential to deal with challenges and create a better school experience for students is exponentially greater, and we can harness that positive energy to achieve better results. These moments of alignment happen in several ways. For some of you, it happens naturally and often. For others, it may only happen by coincidence or even by happy accident. And sometimes these moments are sought out and created very intentionally. However we come upon those moments, they always lead to better things. When we pay attention to that shared space and practice working in it, we get better at creating that reality, and it benefits the students of 4J. So thank you, Gordon, Michelle, Kirthi, and Alicia, for your service and for the moments, whether few or many, when you found yourself aligned in that zone of potential greater impact. And to the board members who are continuing next year and new members stepping on, I encourage each of you to practice awareness of those moments, seek them out, and help create them. I look forward to the great work we'll continue to do together for our students. Thanks.
That concludes our comments by employee groups, and we move on to comments and committee reports by individual board members. Before I continue, I would like to note for the record that Judy Newman has joined us in the meeting. Welcome, Judy. And Kirti is here also. Thank you. Who would like to go first?
I can go and just.
Great, Kirti, go for it.
Thank you, and I apologize for coming in and out of this meeting today. That's going to be my reality for moving forward. It is my last board meeting. I wanted to just say some remarks to bookend this year that has been quite the journey for all of us. First, I wanted to say congratulations to all of our graduates. You guys have an amazing journey ahead of you, and we just wish you all the best after your time here in 4J. I wanted to say thank you to my fellow board members for appointing me in this position. You guys took a chance on me. I know none of you knew me before a year ago. I'm sure I've given you all equally cause to both regret and applaud that decision, depending on the day. But I appreciate the grace and the space you've given me to make some decisions that have really affected this district. Michelle and I both came on in a really incredibly fraught time in the district, in a time of transition, and the journey continues to be up and down, but I'm really hopeful about where we are going, and I hope we've contributed to some of the stability on here. Over the year, I've been particularly proud of being able to vote for the historical agreement with OSCA and for our classified staff to be able to limit further the guns in schools. For our support for libraries and librarians. I hope we can continue to do that. for curriculum adoptions. I really hope that we continue to focus on allowing teachers the flexibility to be able to teach in their classrooms and be able to mold and adapt those curriculum to what suits them best. I hope the administration continues to focus on things that are less easy to administer and most on what is best for teaching and learning in the classrooms. I was thinking today, just reflecting back on the year, and I have some take it or leave it observations around my time in 4J. One of the things I wanted to say was that we're in a unique space here, but I think that sometimes with Eugene, we spend a lot of time focusing on how precious and unique we are. But I do want to say that we have a lot of commonalities with parts of the world. I've probably worked in about 30+ countries now, and I promise you that there are lessons to be learned from different parts of the world. And I hope we continue to be learning from people that aren't just from here. I think that we need to be opening our world to wider lenses and to be bringing those thoughts and practices into our community. I think we have a long way to go to achieve racial equity in this community. I do believe that that's going to be difficult to achieve until we give actual authentic voice, genuine voice to the communities of color in this community. And not only just giving them space and a safe space to be able to produce their voice, but also having their voice heard and acted upon. I think we do a really good job of appreciating a lot of different cultures here, but not necessarily incorporating them. I've said that all the way through, and I will continue to bring that up as long as I'm living in Eugene. Lastly, I will say that I think that we've done a really good job on bringing some things to bear about what we consider high quality public education, but I think that conversation needs to continue to happen as a community collectively on what we consider a high quality public education, not just in terms of academics and the things that we think of like reading and literacy and math, but the things that produce a high quality of life in terms of arts and music and choice and non-academic careers and trades and the things that are going to produce a high quality of life for our citizens. And then figure out to a certain extent how to give access to all of our students, regardless of knowledge, skills, abilities, access to those programs or economic strata. And I think that's when we achieve a high quality of public education. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to the 4J community, the teachers, educators, the classified and licensed staff and administrators. Nobody gets into public education for the glories and the riches. Like, we do this because we care. We trust our youngest children, or all our children with you, to help care for them and to grow them. I know I do put my children in your care, and I really appreciate all the work that you do and taking care of them. And I thank you for letting me be part of that for this past year. And I hope to continue to grow with you. So thank you guys, all of you.
Anybody want to go next?
I can, Maya.
Thank you.
I have, I'm thinking along the same lines as many of the speakers tonight. And I just want to start by really congratulating all of our graduates, the class of 2023. It was really a joy for me to attend. I think I attended 4 graduations, and I hope to attend the rest, many of them next year, but it is always very uplifting to see everything, all the students and what they've accomplished. And I really am visualizing a bright future for each one of you. I also want to thank the employees in our district, employees in every position. I think Kirthi said it well. We entrust our children, our most important parts of us, and for education, for safety, for nurturing, for role models. I'm grateful that we have such a talented and committed staff. I want to thank our student reps. I'm glad some of you are here tonight. I worried I didn't get a chance last meeting to thank you, but your voices have really added so much to our meeting. And our meetings, I really like hearing, first of all, what's going on in our schools, but also your thoughts about things that we're considering and voting on as a school board and a community, and bringing things to our attention, because you are all in schools and experiencing what is important to students. And it's very important for us to hear that and hear that from your perspective. And I've really had the good fortune to be Ren Washington's advisor this year. I think it's the first year we had Eugene Online students represented on our board. And I got to meet often with Ren and got to know her, which was really a wonderful experience. So congratulations, she graduated also this year. But I also learned a lot about what students are experiencing in the Eugene Online program, and I'm glad to have their voice at the table. And that brings me to thank our fellow board members that are leaving our board. It's been a year of struggle, but also I am impressed with the dedication and commitment every single board member has to the school, to students, and to the school district. And I want to thank people for the work they put in. It's a lot of hours, and it's a lot of thinking and reading and trying to make the best decisions we can. First, Alicia. I'm going to go in order, but I think I don't know if it's 16 or 17 years, but it's been many years of service to 4J. I've appreciated your wisdom, your experience, your advocacy, and also your humor. I think you have a way sometimes of delivering a message that it really can help us see a side of ourselves and the situation, and not take things as seriously, be able to see both many sides. And Gordon served with you for 4 years, and I especially had a chance to work on the community benefits agreement with you pretty closely, and the religious policy. And that was a really good experience. I think you have a lot of knowledge and commitment that you brought to this board, and I thank you for that. And Kirthi, it's been a pleasure also to get to know you. We've gotten to work together on the legislative committee this past year. And so I've really appreciated your insights and help with all of that. It was really nice to be able to work on that committee with you. And Michelle, the same. Partway through the year, I got to join the mental health committee with you, and I really got to see a lot of your passions at work and the contributions you brought to the board. So I look forward, looking ahead, working with you, Maya, and I see Laurel's on the call, also with Laurel. And I just want to thank you all and wish you all the best. Thanks.
Thank you, Judy. Gordon?
Thanks. Thank you. First, thank you so much to the people who are here tonight, with those signs and with these flowers, and to Roscoe and Larry for your super kind words. Checks are in the mail. It's still Pride Month, and I'm still so grateful for all the queer and trans students and staff who enrich our community by bringing their whole selves to school every day. Like Zoe Goldstone, who testified earlier tonight, my daughter also is part of a queer posse, and it's a wonderful thing to see.
And I think the victory of the South Eugene High School Gender Inclusive Ultimate Frisbee team, which just won the national championship for the second time. Not the signs of the power of inclusion. This is my last meeting of my term on the board, and I want to thank all the students, parents, and community activists who I've had the privilege of working with during the past 4 years. And especially to all the teachers, EAs, counselors, school psychologists, administrators, bus drivers, custodians, food service workers, and librarians. First, for the fact that so many of you work so far above and beyond the required duties to do right by our kids, and that the system would collapse without your idealism. And second, for teaching me and other board members so much and being so generous with your time and expertise in educating us about how all kinds of things actually work in the district so that we're able to make more intelligent policy and budget decisions. I want to give special thanks to Board Chair Maya Rabasa. There is nobody who spent more volunteer hours in 4J schools before joining the board, and no one who has spent more hours as a board member listening to parents, students, staff, and community members in order to create as transparent, as inclusive, as democratic, and as effective a board as possible. I know there are people who serve on school boards because they see it as a stepping stone to higher office, or because it serves their business interests, or because they want a reputation as a person who matters. And I know the only thing that matters to Maya Rabasa is making life better and school more interesting and more successful for the students in our community. We've not been sort of very grateful that the board and district will continue to benefit from her work in the future. I want to say a couple of things about graduation this season. This is a season that a time that we shine a special light on students who have achieved remarkable things. And there are students who really have done amazing things, and I'm thrilled to be able to help cheer them on. It's great that we take time to recognize and congratulate those achievements. But it's wrong that we have a system that functions to make so many kids feel inferior or like disappointments. There's a national movement to do away with grades, and I support that to the extent that anybody cares what I support anymore. The primary function of grades, I believe, is that while high-performing students get the message every year that they're really quite impressive and bright, the majority of students every year are given the message that they're not that hot, they shouldn't think too much of themselves, and they should get used to following instructions and lowering expectations, so they'll grow up to be obedient and non-rebellious workers when they leave school. I don't think that's the message that any educator really wants to convey, so I'd be happy to get rid of grades. But in the meantime, I want to share a graduation season message that was posted by a 4J teacher, which is this. A big shout out to all the kids who didn't win an award or make honor roll and barely made it through the school year, who never gave up even when they wanted to. A big hug to the moms, dads, grandparents, and guardians that stuck by them as they maneuvered the school year. To the kids that didn't get invited to the prom, didn't get a scholarship to college, perhaps have to go straight to work out of high school. You're also worthy of congratulations and posts with people talking about how amazing you are. To the kids on IEPs, 504s, or whatever they struggle with and have to work twice as hard as other students just to get a C, their achievement deserves recognition too. Kindness, hard work, creativity, and generosity, these are the things we need to celebrate in all of our kids. The last thing I want to say is about the very last thing on tonight's meeting, which probably almost nobody who's here now will be here to witness. This is the longest daylight day of the year, and I'm still like, hope springs eternal that we might actually see some of it before we get out of here. But the last thing we're doing is that by board procedure, we have to vote tonight on who the leadership will be for next year's board. And then when the new board comes in, they vote either to go along with that recommendation or to reject it. And when we get there, I will be proposing that we elect Maya Rabasa for a second year as chair. She's done an exemplary job, and I believe has won the respect and appreciation of everyone on this board. We can't legally elect somebody who's not yet a board member. So in tonight's meeting, I'll move that we recommend to the new board that they elect incoming board member Jenny Jonak as vice chair. Ms. Jonak is not only a 4J parent, PTO co-chair, accomplished attorney, champion of equity, and longtime community leader. She also won the broadest and most unanimous support of anyone running for election this year. She was endorsed by organizations across the political spectrum, including both current and past board members, current and past mayors, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Labor Council. I believe she got more votes than any other candidate ever has running for a 4J school board seat. And for all those reasons, I think she'd make an ideal vice chair and believe that the board and district would benefit from having her in that role. So for those of you who won't be here when we have this discussion, I just wanted to say up front that that's what I'll be advocating for later. And thank you all again for everything you do for the school district.
Being on the board for a year has been nothing else I would think. I recognize that I represent a few marginalized identities and that I am not from here. I arrived here after living in Asia for 13 years, and I'm also as American as everyone else. Despite a huge learning curve and feeling like I was finally getting the hang of things here, I chose not to pursue continuing. I hoped my perspectives would be a contribution and have been met with a range of reactions. At worst, there's been resistance and dismissiveness, and at best, collaboration and curiosity. Like Kirthi, I don't represent the status quo. A lot of what she said, I wholeheartedly agree. I'm not one to be very comfortable speaking in public. I'd rather listen and contemplate and represent the introverts. I encourage the district to invest in what I find to be the highest priority, which is belonging. I've thoroughly enjoyed being in schools, interacting with students, with my fellow board members, and listening to teachers and community members. Kudos to the librarians who provided a very warm welcome. And to beat a dead horse, I will continue advocating until every school has their very own librarian. Congratulations to our class of 2023, including Jasmine Darmani, our South student representative. I'm sure she's going to go on to do amazing things, and, along with the rest of our graduates. I wish the new board members well, and to students, educators, and everyone invested in 4J, best of luck to everyone.
I think if you all stick around till the very end, there's cake in the other room, which is you should be rewarded. So I thought I would just highlight the 100 most important things I did over the last 16.5 years. And I thought you all would hate me because you like to get moving, because I know many of you are here for specific reasons. I will just say first, of course, thank you to the graduates, and couldn't be more true what was written from that teacher about who doesn't get that recognition and how we need to provide that support and that awareness. And if I was going to just continue on the board, I would love to continue those discussions about no grades. So I hope you guys get a chance to do that. So congratulations, graduates. It was fun. Graduation is one of the best things to see those successes. Also, I just want to thank the 16.5 years went really fast. And I look out in the audience and I know I didn't always agree with all of you, but I did learn from all of you. And I did, I think, bring my best self to hear sides to make the best decision. So no, I haven't actually made up my mind about YG because there's pieces of information I don't have yet. You all may have it, but we haven't received some of that. So I want to spend the time to be thoughtful about that. So I appreciate that. And I just appreciate all the staff and everybody that supported the board and all the opportunities I've had to get to know people and do some really hard work, closing programs, closing schools, seeing our furlough days in our large classrooms, all has been very difficult, but all the new buildings, all the support our community gives us has been a thrill. So now I come to this guy. Look familiar? How many years ago, and I apologize, I don't remember the name of it. 5, 6, 7, 8. And it was for YG to say, you get a color in the eye when they have a program that moves up through high school. And the eye is not colored, and I'm leaving the board. It's now with the superintendent. Get that eye colored in, it's all like this. So I thank you all for the opportunity to serve. It's been very exciting and actually it's just been a great learning experience, and I hope I've done you well, although not always in agreement, but really always willing to listen. And I hope this new board carries that on as well, to hear those voices that often don't get raised. And I've seen that shift, more of the voices of queer kids and kids of color and their families have certainly over 16.5 years been more included and more in the forefront, and we need to continue that, as well as listening to those people that we don't always agree with. No, I didn't always disagree with Roscoe and Larry, sometimes it took me a little bit to listen. So thank you guys too. Thank you all, I appreciate it. I won't bore you anymore, and I'll pass it back.
Thank you, Eugene. Though the start of summer programs is right around the corner, in the past few days, there has been a widespread sigh, a collective sigh across the district that comes with completing the final tasks of the school year. Assignments have all been turned in, grades have been shared, cubbies emptied into brown bags, classrooms packed up for summer in most cases, and for Eugene High School packed for the big move to the new building. This is just a tiny sample of the tasks that take place at the end of the year. And I want to extend a thank you to all of our staff for putting the 2022-2023 school year to bed. It takes a huge lift, and I see you working your tail on to wrap things up. Thank you. And thank you also for the work it took from August 2022 until just last week to successfully guide students through another year with 4J. Thank you to the students for stepping up and coming to the table to learn, grow with your peer groups, and engage in any number of extracurricular activities, adding to the richness of the 4J experience for everyone. Thank you for the yearbooks you created, the drama productions you shared with the community, the music you brought to our ears, the sporting events that gave us a chance to cheer you on. I'd like to echo Gordon in celebrating the second national title recently won by South Eugene High School's gender neutral ultimate frisbee team. Particularly on the spot, we have with us one of last year's captains who worked so diligently to build this team. Thank you, Erin Area. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Erin Area. Yeah, when you have a sibling like that, it's hard. And so much more. But thank you, students, mostly for trusting us with your education and for carving out a place for yourself and your peers in 4J schools. Thank you. Last, I want to thank the whole board for this past year's work. It is safe to say it has not always been easy. We have faced tremendous challenges, many within the context of this space, our public meetings. But it has also been a rewarding year, and we have accomplished a tremendous amount together, from reaching a contract agreement of monumental proportions with our classified staff, to strengthening our relationship with our employee groups and invaluable community members, to supporting our superintendent in his first year leading 4J, and so much more in between. Thank you to the whole board for the time, energy, passion, and tremendous thought you bring to the table. Thank you especially to our 4 board members who are moving on: Michelle Hsu, Alicia Hayes, Kirthi Azija Kaufman, and Gordon Laper. I consider myself lucky to have served alongside such a dedicated collection of school board members. Every step of the way, you have committed to the shared vision of doing right by our students. You have committed to supporting our staff. You have committed to bringing your full selves to the table. I have learned different things from each of you. From Alicia, I've learned a tremendous amount from your institutional knowledge of both 4J history and also parliamentary practices. I have also, as Judy mentioned, learned the power of humor, even during the most formal of meetings. Thank you. From Kirti, I have learned to never overlook the relationship between the development and the implementation of education policy. I have also learned to look for the big picture, but to not overlook the details either. Really, you have taught me to seek balance. Thank you, Kirti. From Michelle, I have learned the importance of always actively listening, both to stakeholders, but also to myself. And at the same time, to not take myself too seriously. But also to say and do the hard things. I have also been regularly reminded by you, Michelle, of the importance of developing and using a crystal clear equity lens and committing without hesitation to equity work. And from Gordon, I have learned more than I ever imagined knowing about labor negotiations, labor history, labor law, and I have been inspired to always maintain unwavering support for our staff so they in turn can support our students at the highest level. And in order to do this, to seek out the voice of these experts and to actively and intentionally listen and then the important part, act. And above all four of you have taught me to hold fast to a commitment to do what is right by students and staff in the community. While the four of you may no longer be here at the table, the dais, wherever, a part of you will continue to be because I will carry the lessons you have gifted me to the table every time I engage in this role. So thank you to all four of you. Carrie. Next on the agenda is our consent group, items for action. There are 15 items on the agenda, the consent agenda tonight. Maybe wait a second, people take it off. All right, there's 15 items on the consent agenda tonight. Is there a motion? Gordon?
I move that we adopt all 15 motions.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
So Gordon moves to adopt all 15 items on the consent agenda and Alicia Hayes seconds that motion. Is there any discussion? I don't see any discussion, so in that case, all those in favor of adopting all 15 items of the consent agenda, raise your hand and say aye. All those opposed, please raise your hand and say nay. Passes unanimously with 5 ayes from Myra Bassa, Alicia Hayes, Michelle Shu, Gordon Mayford, and Judy Newman. Just for the record, it looks like Kirti has stepped away from the meeting. That's understood, but unanimous passing. Next up on the agenda are items of information of which we have 3 tonight. First up is an overview of the work to implement a new office of the Ombudsperson for Eugene School District 4J. Andy, you have the floor. I'm not sure if Brett Harris is joining you or you're taking it on solo.
No, I'm not taking it on solo. She is online. Brett, can you say her as Brett?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. As a way of introduction, we've worked over the course of the year with Brett Harris to try to implement here in Eugene School District 4J an Ombuds office. Brett's going to tell us a lot more about exactly what an Ombuds office is. But it's worth noting that this was a suggestion by members of the board at the beginning of this year. And it's if I misrepresent this, Brett, please let me know. Ombuds really means ear of the people, ear to the people. Simply put, it's not a complaint office. It's not a formal complaint process. It's an individual who is going to, in short time, know a great deal about our school district and about our community, that can help with some informal conflict resolution, can help steer folks in a direction when they want to pursue things further, can help help this institution be more penetrable to people who do not feel as though we listen, and to extend a hand to somebody that's having a hard time. There are ombuds offices in post-secondary education, and they're far more frequent, and the movement is growing in K-12 education. And without stealing any more of your thunder, Brett, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. That was a wonderful overview of Ombuds programs and sort of the purpose and the role that they serve. I'll go ahead and I'll share screen just so that you can see some materials. There we go. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to provide some information, and I'm going to keep it very brief, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. So just briefly, I'm involved in this project because I was asked to serve as a consultant to develop this Ombuds program and to really design implementation, of the program and its intersection with other complaint channels and systems. I serve as the University Ombudsperson at the University of Oregon, where I've been for 7 years, just about. And actually, I'm now also, I serve in a role as an assistant vice president for Ombuds services, and I oversee some other programs and departments as well, and do some work with culture and climate work. So based off of that experience, based off of some other experience implementing Ombuds programs and serving in consulting roles, I was asked to consult on this. And I'm always very excited to do this work because these programs are certainly growing in popularity. And, I get to experience every day the difference that an Ombuds program can have in terms of people and their perception and feelings of fairness within any sort of an organization or institution or system. And also just in terms of culture and accessibility and access and all of those things that I think are really important key components, and that I've heard some of you mention earlier tonight. In terms of an Ombuds program's purpose, I'll share that essentially it's a comprehensive conflict resolution system. It serves two main functions. One, it helps with individual or group conflicts, so sort of on a case-by-case basis. And the second thing that an Ombuds program does that's very unique is that it identifies systemic issues. Ombuds programs do this by gathering data and using data to help effectuate organizational change and see where there's need. Some key components of an Ombuds program include that it's a confidential resource. That is really a very important component of an Ombuds program. I'm really pleased that in the work that I've done with the school district this year, they've made it very clear, the superintendent's made it very clear that this should be a program that is compliant with the International Ombuds Association standards and principles. And so in keeping with that, this will be confidential to the full extent that it's able to be so by law. It's also an informal program and resource. That's also very important, right? Because there are a lot of formal channels that people can normally go to. And really, in order to be confidential and to be a good conflict resolution resource, Ombuds programs really need to be informal, and they need to exist in that informal space. And then finally, this person is completely impartial. The Ombuds person, the Ombuds office, the Ombuds function, it is a neutral role where they don't take sides or represent individuals. And that's, again, another key component of an Ombuds program. These are typically what the services look like. So as I mentioned, there are the individual services. So that might be consulting with people on policies or processes, referring them to other resources, doing conflict coaching, doing some leadership development where it's needed. There's also dispute resolution. So if more is needed in a case than just those individual services, then oftentimes the Ombuds provides mediation, facilitation, group problem solving, sometimes even informal climate assessments. And then the other parts of the Ombuds role include doing outreach. Obviously, that's a big part, right? Many people will not know what an Ombuds office does, what an Ombuds person does. Some training and preventative help can also be part of the Ombuds role. Some workshops on conflict and communication related topics. Collaborating with other services is a very important part of the role. And then that piece of upward feedback where an Ombuds takes the data that have been collected and provide that information to decision makers so that it can be used. Here are the things that the Ombuds program does not do. Doesn't take sides in a dispute, doesn't determine the outcome or set the course of action, does not provide legal or financial advice or counseling services, doesn't overturn any decisions, or serve as an office of notice. And as far as this program and the development and implementation, I know that that's still sort of being worked out, but through winter and spring, I've worked on gathering information, meeting with various offices to envision and design the program. I think that the job posting, if I'm correct, is up right now, and that the goal is that hiring will take place over the summer so that this program can be implemented in the fall. So that is what I have to share with you, just as a brief overview of this program and its implementation. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about how Ombuds programs function and what the worth or value is of them, or anything else that you might have to ask.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? All right, well, I'm just going to comment that thank you for joining us and giving us an overview that clearly was well delivered as we see to questions. I am super excited to get this rolling in our district. I think it's going to impact our district culture in a way that we've all been eager to see happen. So thank you, Brett, for all the work that you put into this and are continuing to put into this. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Brett. Much appreciated.
Next up on the agenda is our board self-reflection. We've received a tremendous amount of support from Jenna McCauley, who is going to join us and share a little bit about the process and where this might take us.
Thank you, Lynn. As a reminder, in your email, you received the feedback that you had completed that was compiled from the 2 questions that you approved, which were, what do you think we as a school board are doing well? And what can we focus on in order to improve? And then the second question was, what is getting in the way of our success? I'm sure you've had some time to think about it yourselves. In your own responses, the responses to others were shared. And what you'll find in there is that there was a lot of alignment in terms of the work. And I think that that is going to serve this board well and reflect into the future for the future board. When Maya and I first discussed this, in completing your self-reflection, the goal was, since there is going to be some turnover, to set up good conversations for your future board. With that, one of the things that came out that was pretty clear was that while there's more often than not alignment around the work, that there does appear to be some work to be done around communication and trust within the board. After reading through that and reflecting, I wanted to give you guys some space to have that conversation. And then if there was a time or questions for staff, I'm happy to help with.
Does anybody from the board have questions or comments? Sounds like we are digesting the feedback that we shared with each other. Go ahead. Your windows, right? I would have to agree with that. Jenna, were you gonna share the possibility of where this might lead us?
So again, in reviewing the feedback that you shared about your experiences on the board this year, one of the things that staff noted was potentially that the board may benefit from some outside support, some facilitation on the front end to help support both onboarding, conversations at your retreat, and goal setting. So the suggestion from staff is that you're welcome, or we welcome your input, and we would be happy happy to work with you to identify an outside facilitator that could help support some of that onboarding work. And then ultimately help guide your initial retreat so that you all are coming into this next coming year with a firm understanding of the work that you'd like to do and an opportunity to spend some time together and build that relationship.
I'm assuming that we'll take that to the next board to have a decision made around that, but does anybody from this board want to weigh in on how they think that might benefit a board that's coming together following this one? Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, Jenna, for your support with that. The next item for information is a legislative committee update from Eugene.
There really is not much update. It looks like the budget is still working its way through, but we seem to be on track for the $10.2 billion state school fund. And so now that all the legislators are back working, things get voted on through the full Ways and Means Committee, and then has to go to before the House and the Senate for approval. But I don't see any problems going forward with this, so I think I'll just leave it at that.
Are there any questions for Judy? Judy, I have the question, and if you don't know the answer to this, it's okay. I just wanted to know if by chance, I know yesterday there was a conversation around the funding proposal for, and I forget the numbers, but the early literacy initiative. Go ahead.
That is going through.
It is going through, but I'm asking the alternative proposal for the funding. Originally, I just want to clarify, the alternative proposal was to divert funds from the Student Investment Act, and then I don't know if that changed yesterday.
That what I heard from the Capitol is that it has changed, and I think it will be opposed if it. I mean, that it is going forward with a different source. I think it's just general fund, not out of the state school fund or the CAT tax, the student investment.
So,
but I will get back. I mean, that's the last I heard yesterday.
I think that the next time the Ways and Means Committee meets, if I'm not mistaken, is the 25th. So I suppose as individual board members, we could always elect to communicate as individuals. Is that correct?
Yes, we can. I don't think it's the Ways and Means that's meeting on the 25th, because the budgets, they'd still have to go to the full House and the full Senate, so they have to be done before that. I think the capital construction was the last bill they were dealing with, but I can double check on that, Maya. That's my understanding.
That would be great. I would love to find out where that funding sits. My concern is that it possibly was coming from the statewide education initiative account, and I would love it if it came from the general fund personally. Not that we get to choose, but we can always make a little noise.
I think there was so much opposition to it coming from the SIA account that I don't.
No, I don't think SIA account. I think they moved it from SIA to SEIA, which is the statewide education initiative account, which is a different
right. Source. Yes, that is different. It was in there exactly, and you were opposed to that.
I would prefer it come out of the general fund, but it'd be great to know where it lands. If you find that out, I would love to learn it. I can also dig a little, because at this point we have to act as individuals. We don't have time to make a collective decision. But at the same, so I bring this up also so other board members, if they so choose, could speak up about this and wanted to follow through on it. Thank you, Judy, for all the work on this. I know it's been nerve wracking with the walkout. And not knowing when things would get rolling again, so this has been, you and Kirti had quite a task. I really appreciate your work on this. I don't mean to cut you off if there was anything else.
Nope.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else? Okay. Then we move on to items for action. We have 6 items for action tonight. Up first, we have a review of community engagement responses to co-location concerns at 850 Howard. That is coming up to share some information with us, and then we'll engage that information.
Good evening again. As you'll recall, we are now in phase 2 of the 3-phase plan that the board approved in May to address the issues that have arisen from co-locating 2 schools in one building. Just for a little bit of background on how we've gotten here, then the 3rd meeting, the board approved the process, which included 3 phases. The first one was a collection of all of the different alternatives, the options, the costs, etc. And we presented that to the board on May 17th. Between May 17th and June 16th, meetings were held with the school communities that allowed for community input on the options related to their school community. We also provided input opportunities online, a thought exchange tool that allowed for the community to share what would be needed in order for their community to feel like they had a vibrant and thriving. Following the community engagement, we brought back alternatives to the North Region Subcommittee, and that is what leads us here this evening. During the community engagement process, the board elected to go ahead and keep all of the options that were presented as viable options for the community's input. So that information was shared out with you and is listed on the Howard website. The 850 Howard web page, including the responses to the thought exchange, as well as the individual responses from the community engagement in-person sessions. Following the in-person sessions, there was a commitment to honor the work of the North Region Subcommittee. The district worked to assess the options before them and identified the 3 viable alternatives, which is what brings us here this evening. At this point, the district then took to the North Region Subcommittee the option of continued co-location with adjustments to the building at 850 Howard. A move of the Eugene, the moving of the elementary Japanese immersion program to the Willard location once it's vacated by cameras. A potential move to a site somewhere here on the 200 North Monroe property. At the meeting at the North Region Subcommittee, that meeting did not result in consensus. So we've shared with you all of the community input and feedback, and at this point are wondering if there is anything else that you need from the district in order to make a decision, move forward, take a different path, etc.
Alicia.
Can you go back to that? Now, can you again tell me how we got to these 3? Because I missed something in that.
The excellent question. So at the May 17th meeting, we provided all of the alternatives that had ever been proposed. So the laundry list of things.
Right.
We collected feedback from the communities that were impacted. So Kelly weighed in at their meeting on options that impacted them. Eugene weighed in on options that impacted them. Based on feedback from the board at the time, it was clear that we had some funding challenges. So the district reviewed the feedback as well as viable options that were within our current budget without modifying that, and landed with the proposal of these 3 viable options.
Don't want to put you on the spot, but if we used money, which sounds like we did, why did we take away? We should have done that up front, because I think it let people, I just want to honor the fact that there are people who built ideas and we didn't have the money. I've heard that from a number of folks, so I appreciate we are where we are. I just think that's a takeaway. First, I guess I just want to say, hey, I'll be the time to show you. But I know I've been part of the problem of kicking this can down the road. I go back to Mary Walston after us to make that decision years ago. So I'm sorry we're here tonight. I'm not sorry we're here because we're gonna make a decision. We're gonna put that I in that guy. I got a better term than that, but I just think, you know, we're in a tough spot. And I just want to honor that. To that end, can you explain a little more about the 200 North Monroe? I've heard a little bit about this, but I don't know how viable it really is. Thank you.
Certainly. So the 200 North Monroe is the least clear of the three options that you see before you because it has the greatest amount of variables. However, it remained viable as an option because it had the greatest amount of variables. And so I'm going to pause for a second and make sure that that's not something the superintendent would like to respond to.
No, that's great. You're very accurate. 200 North Monroe is a property that the district currently owns that is zoned for instructional use, is centrally located and in the North region. There are some options here that would, some possibilities, excuse me, that would require other moves. It isn't necessarily, as I spoke with folks from the YG staff last week at the meeting, don't get your mindset on we are talking about this building or we are not talking about this building. There would need to be some fairly involved conversations about what might be possible on this property. But there are options that are here that would prevent a move in a permanent way over to the Willamette area and would prevent the program from being taken out of the North region. Would cost some money and may need to be done in phases. We don't know enough to talk about that level of specificity, but this is an option as we pursued EWEB earlier in the year for the same reason that right now we are using what is very valuable, both financially and programmatically, space that is designed for instructional use for administrative offices, and we can administer in an office building elsewhere and make better use of this.
Yeah, I'll wait. Okay, anyone else want to ask questions? Well, we have Jenna.
I have my hand up. This is Judy. Yeah. So back to the North Monroe, I appreciate there's a lot of unknowns. How would you see that process? Let's say we voted for that option tonight. What would be the process then to get to the specifics and the timeline?
Thank you for asking, because that's why I left the next step slide up. So if you'll recall from the May 3rd meeting, you guys agreed to approach this in a phased manner. And so this evening is reviewing the input of the community and then quite likely making a decision that would lead to that phase 3 approach. As we're heading into the summer, we recognize that now would not be the time to then do greater planning. We would need to bring together cross-stakeholder groups, but whatever decision that you make this evening is going to lead us into that fall long-range planning. So we would respond accordingly, whether that is design groups coming together to envision, whether that is work to identify an appropriate location for the administrative services so that this property is freed up, so that then there is the ability to utilize it for educational spaces, whether it is move planning if the Willard location is selected. So all of that is encompassed in the timeline that you approved, which would be starting in the fall through the winter of next year.
Judy, I can't see you. Do you have any follow up, or is that good for now?
I guess, did we put a deadline on when that design project would be done? I mean, I hear that, and that, are you saying that would be true for any 3 of the choices?
Your decision would then give us the opportunity to build a timeline around. Because the decisions have different needs. So for example, if it was the remaining at 850 Howard and modifying the application, there would be some timeline in order to provide relief for the 24-25 school year. If it's moving to Willard, there would need to be some time for site planning, et cetera, for the team that would then be taking on that space. If it was here, it would need to be a timeline that would identify a move from this space for the administrative services. So we did not put an end date, not knowing the direction that the board would take, and we'd be happy to do that, recognizing these communities are seeking relief. So the point of putting the plan together was to keep it time bound and moving forward, but projecting out much further was unrealistic without the board's.
Suppose I would also say, Judy, there's no interest from anyone on staff to unnecessarily prolong the wait. I know that it has an impact on folks at Kelly, folks at YG, parents in both programs, students in both programs, the board, every aspect of the district is negatively impacted by not having a decision made.
Gordon? I have a motion, but I can wait if somebody will ask a question.
I think Alicia has another question. I want to make sure that Joe is done with the information she prepared for us. Yes, please.
One of the things I've learned in my 16, and I just like saying that because it sounds smarter and you actually listen to it, is that I would always say, is this our decision or is it the superintendent's decision? You can understand it gets confusing. When Dr. Berman was here, we took on the responsibility of of changing the bell schedule. I will never do that again. I mean, I'll never do it because I'm not on the school board, but I would never touch it again. That is actually the superintendent's job. And what I've been hearing, and I'm sorry I didn't ask this question right up front, is that moving programs from location to location, and by the way, I'm not sure if I will make a decision, but that is actually the superintendent's responsibility. And I'm just wondering if you could confirm or deny that allegation.
Program moves are the privilege, shall we say, of the superintendent. But in this particular case, the implications make it, I think, a joint decision with the board, and that the amount of money that we're discussing, the long-term implications of program moves from one region to the other, or the construction of a new building or the complete remodeling. So it's a bit messy.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
This does make schedule change look like a light snack though.
Do you have anything else, or is that the end of the?
That is the end. We welcome your direction and feedback.
Okay. Gordon, sounds like you have a motion.
I do. I just want to say that our timetable, as you laid out, aimed at us being able to make a final decision, including permanent location for YG by tonight. And I wish the answer to that was clear, but it's not for me, and I know Alicia spoke to this earlier as well. And I do think that it's clearer for a bunch of reasons, including some raised by people tonight, that permanent co-location of Kelly and YG doesn't make sense. And since the board doesn't meet, hardly meets over the summer, and the idea of saying to the new board, start from scratch and trying to understand, majority of people start from scratch trying to understand this, I don't think that makes sense either, given everything that everybody's gone through. So I would like to make a 3-part proposal, and I'm happy to, if any board member wants to separate this out into, if somebody thinks it makes sense to discuss and vote on these separately. But the 3 parts of my proposal is that we decide to end co-location at 850 Howard as of the end of the upcoming 2023-24 school year. that rather than thinking we know the exact right decision or waiting for the new board to get up to speed, we direct the superintendent to identify an appropriate new location for YG, and maybe that speaks to your question of jurisdiction as well, Alicia. And then that we commit to keeping staffing levels at YG and Kelly stable during the transition period, so that neither school goes through we lost staff, so we lost students, so we lost staff, so we lost students, so we lost, you know, a downward spiral during the transition period to whatever the superintendent ends up identifying as permanent home for YG. So those are the three parts of my proposed letter. If anybody wants to separate those, I have to separate those.
Yes, please, I think for the sake of organizing our discussions.
Can we do them one at a time?
Yes, please.
Okay, then my first motion would be that we end co-location as of the end of the 2023-24 school year. And that 850 Howard will be after that exclusive use of Kelly Middle School.
Okay, so Gordon Baker's moving that we end co-location at 850 Howard at the end of the 2023-2024 school year, and that site becomes the exclusive site for Kelly Middle School. Is there a second? Michelle Shu seconds. Is there discussion? Alicia?
So as I look at that, if we do that, then that just means what we said to the superintendent is put him here at this grounds at North Monroe, or put them at Willard. So we're really just handing that decision to you. Is that correct? Mike, and those are the two viable options, and you would have to come back to the board if all of a sudden we got a windfall and we're, which is not gonna happen, because we know how our money comes in. I just want to be really clear on what we're saying.
That's the way I understand it.
Anybody else? Judy?
I think I have a concern with that because of the time limit. I understand the urgency to not co-locate, which is why I asked my question before about what the timeline is. In my analysis, it seems I've read all the feedback that was provided from the community input. There's just clear desire not to co-locate by a large group of people, and a clear desire to stay in the North region. My fear about, that's why I wanted to know the North Monroe solution to me offers the possibility of not co-locating and staying in the North region. But if I hear it's going to take longer than 1 year, we've basically inadvertently made a decision by putting a deadline on co-location or causing the program to move twice. So it's hard for me to put a deadline on without knowing what some of our options, how long they would take. And that's why I was really interested in a timeline. So I'm concerned about making that kind of deadline. But I've also heard the message of not wanting to co-locate and not wanting to move to the South region. So that concerns me without knowing how long it would take to get North Monroe going.
I'll put myself in the queue, but I want to see if anybody else. Michelle, do you? You know, this is only my second year on the board. This is a challenge that has been facing these two schools for a long time, and came in a way that has left both schools feeling unheard, undervalued, and frankly frustrated. And I just want to honor that. I want to honor that we got here in a way that did not feel good. And I am also wanting to honor that getting out of this situation doesn't seem to feel very good either. And yet, here we are. In terms of the points that you made, Judy, I can understand that. Unfortunately, the 200 North Monroe comes with so many factors that we don't know the answer to. And my concern is that if we don't commit to a timeline, this could be another example of a community being told, oh, the solution's coming soon, and then 5-6 years later, we're still in the same situation, still trying to figure out what to do. So for me, I understand the idea of moving twice is not appealing at all. But I also understand that the lifespan of a middle school student is 3 years. And we've had a generation and a half in that span go through. We've had 2 classes go through completely, or 1.5. And it feels like if we don't make a decision, it makes it that much easier based on history for things to drag along. And I feel like making the decision to do it this way puts fire under all of our feet to get it done. The other thing I want to emphasize is that the directive of passing this, I guess that comes in the next meeting. I just want to emphasize that everything we're talking about today is not a decision surrounding little YG or YG, the elementary school exclusively. It is with the intention of seeing that program as a program that can be a viable K-12 program. So I just want to make sure that that's centered in everything that we talk about. And with that, I think I'm done. I could talk about this for a long time because we have talked about it for a long time. It's also good. Judy?
I guess I just want to say I completely agree with everything you're saying, but then we're changing the plan completely. If we said we were going to make a decision tonight, I feel like by just making a date instead of a decision is changing the process. And we don't have the data on dates, how long it would take to do these. And now we're voting on a date certain. And I don't want to prolong it either, but I don't have the information to know what we can do in a year. So it just feels like we're completely changing the rules here.
Okay, Dr. Diamond, I might get that.
I'm thinking as I'm talking, which is never wise. But as I'm trying to provide you with some more clarity, Judy, let's say that the decision were to move to Willard permanently. That's more like a transaction that does not take a great deal of time. If, however, there's the decision may ultimately happen, we explore possibilities at 200 North Monroe and make this site a permanent home of YG, that will take more than a year. When you look at the design process and the permitting process and then going out to bid and then doing the construction, we know that takes more than a year. It's probably within 2 years time window from start to finish. So that should provide you and the listening audience with some clarity around how long it would take to transform this place at a minimum, a year and a half, 2 years to a place where it could be school. Beyond that, though,
I figured that, Superintendent, and that's why by voting on a timeline, we're making a backdoor decision. So if we all voted on 200 North Monroe being the option, and you came back and said it was going to take 2 years, then we have to decide, do you move a program twice? Do you wait 2 years co-located and then do it? So our decision was about what direction to go, not a timeline.
Alicia?
Dr. Dyer, is part, and I think I know the answer, I should make sure it's clear. Part of the Monroe is to find a location for admin. So not only are you out there looking, but then you've got to build or modularize.
Yeah, we would be working as hard as we could to do those things simultaneously, so that something was happening in a new place, provided something needed to happen to move administrative functions, we could be making progress on whatever needed to happen here, even if it were just the design and permitting and some ancillary work. We wouldn't necessarily wait until one thing was done until another thing started.
But you do have that problem.
Yes,
It's not as simple.
no, that's right.
Well, and to follow that up, it kind of does have to happen progressively if we need to empty this building of the people working in it before we can begin to transform it into something that isn't just office space. So I worry that that 2 years is more possibly a little bit longer, which.
It very well could be. Swing school, if that were the decision, it seems pretty evident that the swing school that is at Willard would be used as a swing school like it has been for Edison and it has been for campus. A temporary location until they can move to a permanent home.
Are there other questions or comments? Okay, in that case, will we, oh, Michelle?
We're still on the pending.
Okay, in that case, we take it to a vote. All those in favor of ending co-location at the end of the 2023-2024 school year and rendering the 850 Howard property for the exclusive use of Kelly Middle School, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Nay. Okay. So we have Judy did that. So we have 3 ayes and 3 nays. So the motion fails. We have 3 ayes from Maya Rabasa, Gordon Laker, and Michelle Shu, and 3 nays from Kirti.
You had an eye. No, you had an eye for me.
Kirti, you were an eye. I'm sorry. You're on the screen. I didn't see it. So then we have 4 ayes in favor of ending co-location at the end of the 2023-2024 school year, with ayes from Kirti and CJ Kaufman, Michelle Shu, Gordon Laker, and Maya Rabasa, and nays from Judy Newman and Alicia Hayes. So the motion does in fact pass. Do you want to make your second motion?
No, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that, you guys can help me with this. I move that we instruct the superintendent to look at finding property for, finding a place for admin or however you need to move around so that YG can be on the property here at North Monroe. And that we give it that timeline, and if we can't find property, we can't move forward, because that is a big deal, finding the property, that then the superintendent makes the decision.
Can you just clarify the difference between your?
I don't remember what yours is, I just want to.
Gordon's was to direct the superintendent.
Sorry, Gordon, I don't remember you saying that. You're looking here.
You know, words to direct the superintendent to, I'm just looking at my notes, to identify the solution that would lead the programs to happen. Those.
If you get a second, I'll explain, or if you want me to explain so you can vote.
Go ahead.
The difference is, I actually prioritizing looking at this space first over Willard. And giving him that time, that time frame. And there may still need to be a swing school. That's all the superintendent's responsibility because it's a program. But I'm saying as a board, we would choose this site and we would choose to look at, because we would be spending money. So that's why I felt we needed a mission.
I still have confusion despite, my question is the proposal to say, no matter what the cost ends up being, that we would be voting to say YG goes here at any cost and administration goes wherever it can find, or just to make sure that that is, you know, prioritized and thoroughly looked at as one of the things that the superintendent will look at?
Well, I don't think I can say we can spend any money, but there was a dollar figure that was earmarked. And so if you want clarity, I would say that we wouldn't go to over that dollar figure or around that dollar figure that was earmarked. And I can't remember which one this gives in.
And if I may,
Please.
this motion would direct me to prioritize exploring all possible options at 200 North Monroe as the first course of action.
You should be important. Yes.
Okay, I have to be honest that I have no idea if it is appropriate with Robert's rules to jump in when somebody had a 3-part motion and I requested that they make it in 3 separate parts. So I need, if somebody has objections, speak up, because otherwise I feel a little ill out of my element. I don't know.
If you want to be safe on that, that's fine. If you'd like.
Do you have input on? I mean, I feel bad because I made Gordon separate his motion. And he
didn't make
wasn't,
him.
yeah, I totally made him.
Okay, she has power. Okay. Make call.
You know what, I'll let Gordon make the call because it's his motion that was interrupted.
Well, no, if it was interrupted, then it says call. I thought it is.
I'm sorry, I'm still unclear. Your motion is if it costs less than $10 million. Like, I want to be totally clear about, because there's some talk about prioritizing, you was talking about committee. I want to be clear about what it is.
Mine is that the superintendent look at North Monroe first, as the first option. And yes, he has to take the money into consideration. He has to take into consideration, can you find another place for admin? There's a lot of things you would take into consideration.
I don't mind voting on that. I guess I still feel like it's hard for me to know what it would mean, what it means to do something first. Obviously, it doesn't just mean chronologically first. But if it doesn't mean like up to a certain dollar amount, we're making that decision, then I'm not sure what it does mean besides kind of in principle, try really hard to make it work. If it means try really hard to make it work, then I'm happy to say that we direct the superintendent to figure out the permanent home for YG in the way that you said, it will support a K-12 program, and that we would really like for 200 North Monroe to work, and ask them to look at that. Does that capture what you're saying? Okay. Don't ask me, but then to leave for these.
I'm not even sure how to repeat that as a motion.
And you can repeat it, like come to you.
So as I understand the motion is that the board is directing the superintendent to find a permanent location for YG, prioritizing an exploration of available options at 200 North Monroe, but not limited to that as the only option.
So, okay. All right. Is there a second?
Whose motion was it?
That's if it's a motion, that's
Who's gonna own that motion? Because to me, and I know we're getting into discussing before it's on the table, but to me, the way that Jordan worded it, I would have the expectation that Andy would put due diligence into both of the options and not leave one off of the table. And we just talked about how it's not our purview and how these folks have been without a solution for so long. I want to put the confidence in the person who's supposed to make the decision and I would be very excited if Andy didn't do the due diligence on the 200 North Monroe or the Willard option. I think they both deserve the same level of attention. Because then we will get a better solution instead of one that is driven by possibly forcing the solution into action, which is how we got where we are.
So
On the motion, then we'll second it.
can I ask for clarification? I gotta get clarification on what you just said. We just talked about setting a deadline in our last motion, right? We didn't say now, Superintendent, you're gonna make the decision. I'm sorry, I must have missed something.
Yeah, the first motion was to set the date for the end of the co-location.
Yes, I got that. And now the second motion that was made was about prioritizing North Monroe to be looked at first.
As it stands now, it's directing the superintendent to select the best option to set the stage for the viability of both programs, but specifically the Japanese immersion program, by looking at both of programs, but prioritizing 200 North Monroe. I'm glad I'm not taking minutes.
I'm sorry, that's about the third version of this motion I've heard now.
Now,
If I may, for what it's worth, given the other properties that are owned and the costs associated with developing them, whether you were to include that in a motion or not, one of the first, if not the first areas to explore development would be 200 North Monroe, because we own the property. It is zoned for instructional uses. There is infrastructure here. I'll start here, whether you direct me to it not.
Okay, that's all I need.
that was what I was hoping to get. I would hope that you do your due diligence. So then do we go with the circle motion? Are you okay with that, Alicia?
Yes, yeah.
Or go ahead and make a motion.
Okay, so the motion is that we direct the superintendent to identify permanent home for YG.
That includes the long-term viability of the entirety of the program.
Thank you, Maya.
Okay. Just clarifying. Okay, so the motion is that we direct the superintendent to identify a permanent home for YG Elementary School with the intention of viability of the entirety of the K-12 program in mind. Is there a second? Michelle Shu seconds. Is there discussion? Okay, I guess we did enough order. Without any Judy?
No, my hand had been up before, but I guess I don't feel, I guess I will make a comment that I don't feel comfortable changing what we said we were going to vote on tonight. So I'm having trouble with that. So I probably will vote no on this.
Okay, Gordon?
I guess it seems to me in terms of the process of making a decision, either we try to make a decision right now tonight, and we already know that we don't know what the financial numbers are for this building and some other things we don't know. So one choice is to ignore the fact that we are missing a lot of information and guess. The other is to give it to the new board, which means waiting until sometime in August and then having 4 new people start from scratch in a discussion that's been going on for years. And the third choice is to direct the superintendent to do this with, and this is not like the language of the motion, but understanding, I think everybody's top choice would be to find a solution in the North region if that's doable. So given those are choices, that's why that seems to me like the best of the choices in front of us. So for me, that's the point.
Michelle?
Given that we, inherited a situation that included a lot of confusion and I think there were promises made that were not feasible. I feel like pushing the decision further, given the options that we have, I'm not comfortable with that. I would rather make a decision and get the ball rolling and trust that the superintendent and district will heed the input from our community and find the best possible solution.
Kathy, and then I'm adding myself.
I just wanted to actually second what Michelle say. I have been uncomfortable with this decision all the way along because I, to a certain extent, feel like Alicia did, which I don't really, I mean, it's on me. I trust the process and I trust the administration on this, but I haven't been involved in the community as much as some of our other board members have. And I have heard the community in saying that co-location is not an option for all the reasons that we've been hearing all the way through this past year. So I'm perfectly okay with that decision. And I do feel comfortable putting this back on the superintendent, who is entrusted with making decisions that are for our community. And I think this is something that I would feel comfortable with, knowing that we've made some parameters around it, sending back to him, knowing that he's going to have information, especially on budgets and parameters, that things that we don't get to see on a daily basis, that and with deadlines in place that is going to actually push us forward. So that's where I am on this.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to trusting the person that we have in leadership to do the right thing. For me, if we were to pick between those two options, we don't have enough information to make that I don't have enough information, and I've been involved in all of these conversations to make that decision firm for 200 North Monroe. To me, going this route gives 200 North Monroe the time that it deserves to be thoroughly vetted, and without leaving it open to the superintendent to continue digging into this site as one of two options, that to me is giving this site the chance. Otherwise, I don't know how to support 200 North Monroe with the information we have now. This community has been like in limbo for so long. I can't make a decision that then in a few years we come back and we're like, we haven't found space for admin, and so you're still without a home. And by then we may have made a different decision with a different site. We may have made a different decision with Willard, and then I don't know where we'll find ourselves. This feels like the way to give both sites the attention they deserve. Alicia, what were you gonna say?
I just want to make sure you knew that I actually had put a timeline on that, so I was just leaving it out there in limbo. And I think that's Judy's point, is that we said we would make a decision, and we're kind of, we aren't, where our decision is to have the superintendent do it. And that may be where we need to be. That's where we are. With the first vote we took, we're now needing to give it to the superintendent, not us.
Right, you are right. And we also made that promise without the full understanding that it's not our purview to make this decision, as you put it out. Gordon, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to call a vote. I think everybody's spoken to us.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Take that back.
Take it back.
Okay. Judy?
I guess I just want to, before we call the vote, I do have one thing to say. I think by making this vote, we are actually making, I don't see another option in a year. I'm just going to say, other than Willard. So by setting a timeline and calling the vote and giving it to the superintendent, I believe, he just said it himself, there's no way North Monroe could happen before at least 1.5 to 2 years, even if everything fell out. So I just want to be clear that that's actually what we're doing.
Right, but that doesn't mean North Monroe's off the table, Judy, because it would mean that they had to make 2 moves and use the swing site, as many other schools have had to with new developments. It stinks, like I said at the very beginning, going into this didn't feel good, and coming out of it is not feeling any bit better. I believe that we've, unless Michelle or Kirti want to say something else, everybody else has spoken twice or more. You're done, Alicia. I'm just kidding. But you are. So, Kirti and Michelle, you have the floor unless you are ready to vote. All right, Michelle is ready to vote, and I don't see Kirti on the screen, although I know she's listening. So I'm going to take that as you're ready to vote. All those in favor of directing the superintendent to identify the best location for YG Elementary School with the intention of creating the most viable K-12 program possible, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The motion passes with 4 ayes from Kirti Hasija Kaufman, Michelle Shu, Gordon Lafer, and Maya Rabasa, and 2 nays from Judy Newman and Alicia Hayes. Superintendent, you understand your directive, I assume.
I do.
Great. And now Gordon has a third motion.
My third motion, unless Alicia wants to reformulate it.
No, I don't hold it, but you're in line.
Is that we guarantee keeping current staffing levels at Kelly and YG through the transition, and this is just because staffing is based primarily on enrollment according to our staffing formula. Then when there's a transition, if there's a certain number of families, either if it takes time for families drop out and then staffing goes down, and then all of a sudden you have either more crowded classes or less electives, and then enrollment goes down and then staffing goes down again, you can end up inadvertently in a kind of downward spiral. And I think we want to avoid that and have both of these programs come out of this transition in a healthy, vital situation. So that would be my proposal.
Just to be clear, the motion is to maintain current staffing levels through the transition.
That's right.
Okay, and then the other part is just why.
That's right.
Okay.
You don't have to agree with every reason.
No, we can't. So the motion Gordon Laker is laying forward is to maintain current staffing levels for both schools through the transition. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Alicia Hayes. Okay, well, Gordon has the right to talk first, and he already did, so I'm gonna pass it to you, Alicia.
I'd let him talk.
He just explained his.
Can you define transition? I know you're gonna tell me it's the changing from time-wise. Is it a year? Is it if YG ends up in a swim school and then back somewhere else? If you can get me up to.
And you just earlier said we shouldn't think and talk at the same time, but here I am, like I'm just thinking about this for the first time. I mean, in my mind, maybe it's like to the end of the first full year at what the permanent location is. I would be also open to leaving it for a superintendent to kind of decide what actually makes sense.
If it makes the motion easier, a few things. Number one, 4J is better with a strong YG. Number two, we've experienced situations in which staffing decisions in language immersion schools have been made, let's say in 2008-9 at the high school, where those positions, because there was a relatively smaller group of students, were cut or for whatever reason, and that had a downstream effect on the size of little YG and YG at the mid-level. I don't want to make any decisions. I would not make any decisions for a 1 or 2 year perceived staff savings that would ultimately hurt the long-term viability of the school. So that transition is a time of transition. Such permanent decisions shouldn't be made on such acute circumstances. So I suppose what I'm doing is saying that philosophically and practically, even if the motion weren't made, I wouldn't be inclined to make a decision to reduce staffing because there was a small decrease in the number of students in that particular program at that particular time.
Can I ask a clarification? You only mentioned YG in that. Is it safe to assume that we feel the same way about Kelly and their programs and their value and wanting to make sure that they're not negatively impacted by what could eventually be an impact on their?
Do I think that Kelly is important?
Do we, yeah.
Yeah.
I heard you say.
But I just see that YG is the one program out of the two that might potentially see the most fluctuation in student enrollment because of the uncertainty of location. I don't see that same impact being played out on Kelly Middle School state. But I don't see really any difference in value to the overall district. I'm just trying to reiterate that just because YG were to possibly move even to a swing school, I won't be making staffing decisions to decrease staffing because of a slight decrease in enrollment.
But if you were to decide that YG moves to Willard, what Kelly would be definitely impacted eventually because all of the YG students would fall into a different region.
Yeah, I wouldn't commit at this point to saying we'll just add the number of YG middle school staff to Kelly when those students wouldn't be going to Kelly. If it were to move over to the South region, which doesn't sound like a very popular option.
Are there any other questions or comments? Gordon?
I guess just to, and I think this is in keeping with what the superintendent said you'd be doing anyway, but anyway, so just to clarify that, I want to clarify my answer to your question, like you which is that transition would mean to the end of the first school year after relocation.
Anyone else? Okay, in that case, all those in favor of preserving staffing levels at both schools through the transition, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That receives 6 votes in favor, with ayes from Maya Ravasa, Alicia Hayes, Michelle Shu, Gordon Laper, Kirti Asisha Bachman, and Judy Newman. Passes unanimously, and we will be preserving staffing levels at both schools through the transition. We will take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 9:40. From our break, and we're back from our break, and we're moving on to the next action item, which is to adopt the budget for the fiscal year 2023-2024. I see that we have Matt Brown available for any questions at this point. We'll start with the motion, and then we'll lead into discussion, which can answer questions. Does somebody have a motion to make? Gordon Laker moves that we adopt the budget. Is there a second? Michelle Shu seconds that motion. Is there questions or comments that anybody would like to make? Let's open it up to discussion.
Thank you for all the budget time.
I'm gonna celebrate tonight. You go buy some tater tots. We're gonna celebrate also the new state symbol, which is a potato that was passed today. The legislation.
The new what?
We have a new state symbol. It's the potato that was passed today.
I'm feeling a little slight as you come out.
So,
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Budget related? Gordon?
Thank you. Just to move up potatoes for a minute. I'm good with the budget as it exists for this year. I did want to ask if it's possible if either you or the superintendent could say some words about plans for the between $4 and $8 million in additional funding that's not in this budget, but hopefully is coming based on the improved state revenue projections.
that would probably be the guy, the superintendent and his priorities.
My understanding is if the state school fund moves to 10.2, which seems certain from the 9.9, that would result in somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million that we do not have budgeted. If that is in fact the case, and I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be, but I don't see anything until documents like those budgets are signed on the dotted line. My priorities would be to use those dollars to work with staff to see how we might expand access to libraries and librarians, how we can work to launch developmental kindergarten classrooms as needed. And that I would work with staff to see how we might increase the number of adults in buildings, targeting that support to the schools in greatest need. First, ideally, if it was 8 million, we would be able to increase staffing at all schools, but if staffing is, or excuse me, dollars are limited, then I would want to start with the schools in greatest need first and do for them what needs to be done and see how we can help schools after that. All of that being part of the focus for next year, which is providing really high quality tier 1 instruction and opportunities, which includes libraries.
Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question? When you say regarding the library thing, when you say work with staff, is that like work with the instructional directors, or what do you mean by staff?
I think the library advisory committee is a good example of what I mean. It wouldn't just be one subset of staff, it wouldn't just be admin or just be librarians, it would be the people who have been involved with us that know more than I do about what an elementary library should be or what a middle school library should be. So it'd be a cross-section of staff that would help make quality decisions.
Are there any other questions or comments? Michelle?
Just a comment, I was invited to stay on the library advisory, and that was a good reason to do so.
Are there any other, Judy or Kirby, anyone? I'm just making sure I don't overlook you. Any other questions or comments? Oh, thank you, Matt. I was going to suggest that. Now we can see it. Okay. Gordon?
Oh, I'm sorry, was Matt?
No, Matt was just fixing his camera.
I think this is in line with what the superintendent has projected, but if I could, I would like to propose an amendment to my own motion, which was the board would direct the superintendent that in the event that the additional state funding is made available in 2023-24 beyond the budget that we're adopted tonight, that part of that funding will be used to create at least 5 new positions for certified teacher librarians And that the specific assignment of those librarian positions will be determined by the superintendent in consultation with 4J librarian, teacher librarians, and with EEA. And as part of that, prior to any final decision about assignments, 4J teacher librarians will present their recommendations to the board. So that's kind of a goal of 5 positions, assuming that this funding does come through. And some big process about how the superintendent can figure out the best place to put those. So that's my amendment to the motion.
Michelle, do you second it? Did Michelle second it?
Oh, the original motion.
Yes. So now you need to say yes to this. Or no.
Okay, I can agree to this.
Okay, so moved by Gordon to direct the superintendent to, if the funds were to come into place, use those funds to hire 5 new, at least 5 new teacher librarians, certified teacher librarians. And to work with the teacher librarians to determine where they would be placed. And for those librarians to come back and present to the board. Did I get it all?
Yes.
Judy, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I would just like to ask the superintendent, are there other uses of those funds that you think are priority uses in the district? I guess I'm concerned to give you that clear of a direction if you're seeing other areas that really could use enhancement, like maybe more counselors, or we've talked about more need for more EAs possibly, or more supports for the inclusion for all. I'm just wondering if this would be where you would prioritize.
It's one of my priorities. It's not the priority, and so I would ask the board to not necessarily at this point in time come up with a number like 5. I understand and respect the spirit behind it. Maybe there's a sense that specific promises have been made in the past, or you want in some way to ensure that there is this level of investment. But I just don't believe that that's a very high quality decision, given the overall lack of discussion or information or any process at all whatsoever at this point in time. I think that I have 3 priorities, those being increased access to libraries and librarians, development of kindergarten, and increasing staff in schools. I believe we need to have a process that allows us to see what is ultimately the optimal use of those dollars, where all 3 of those priorities are given the consideration that they're warranted.
Gordon? No, it's okay.
I appreciate that. I guess I also do feel like this is something that we've talked about for a long time, and I think is really important. Is I believe a librarian, teacher librarians, $110,000 a year, something like that, maybe a little more. So 5 would be $550, maybe something between $550 and $6, out of the total of $4 million. If we don't get the money, then it's all moot. But if we get the money, that's still that's just an eighth, a little more than an eighth of the money. So still leaves. It's not like this blocks out other priorities. So that's why it makes sense to me to try to give this direction and nail in this direction for the coming year. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Alicia?
So I did have a chance to spend quality time with some librarians, and I absolutely support librarians as well as the other items that I have on today's list. I'm just not willing to, at the last meeting of my tenure here, tell the new board this is where we need to spend the money, because the other thing is What if we don't get the full amount? There's just so many ways, and plus, that new board gets to make those decisions. We shouldn't be at the last hour throwing those things in without having a really thoughtful process like we have, like we do. Kind of at the last minute, just have this kind of thrown in, even just amending the motion shows how quickly or how without thought, without process that's happened. I appreciate it was happening with thought, but not without process. Thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments. Dr.
When you say come back and report to the board, can you tell me a little bit more about what that means?
It just means that the 4J teacher librarians would share with the board their recommendation to you about where they think makes sense, be most useful to put those 5 positions, but it would remain a superintendent decision, not a board decision. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so then first we vote on the amendment, which is to direct the superintendent to, given the increase in funding, in the event that additional state funding is made available beyond the budget adopted tonight, the superintendent shall use part of that funding to create at least 5 new positions for certified teacher librarians, and will work with district librarians to decide what schools those librarians will be placed, which schools they will be placed at. And then those librarians will come and present their recommendation to the board with the final decision in documenting. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, the motion passes with 4 ayes from Meyer, Rabassa, Kirthi, Hasija Kaufman, Gordon Laker, and Michelle Shu, and nays from Judy Lehman and Alicia Hayes. Now we vote on adopting the budget. Is there any discussion around adopting the 2022-2023 budget? In that case, all those in favor of adopting the budget, raise your hand and say aye. Okay. All those opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The budget is adopted unanimously with ayes from Meyer Bassett, Alicia Hayes, Gordon Laker, Kirthi Hasija Kaufman, Michelle Shu, and Judy Newman. The next item for action is, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. The next item for action is to approve the job-related performance evaluation of the Chief Executive Officer and resolution of change to contract of the Chief Executive Officer, Superintendent Dye. We have conducted the process using the tool that we agreed upon and compiled the input from all the board members into a formal evaluation. I will now read to you a summary of said evaluation so that it can be recorded formally. The Board of Directors of the Eugene School District 4J has completed its annual review performance evaluation of Superintendent Dr. Andy Dye. Completing your first year as superintendent, the board recommends you for your overall job performance and commitment. Commends you for your overall job performance and commitment to advancing the goals of the district. Dr. Dye, the board is supportive of your direction to focus the district's work on 3 key areas. timely communication and meaningful engagement, equitable advancement and access for all students with an amplified focus on the needs and desires of our underserved students and families, safety and well-being of students and staff. These focus areas are clearly responsive to the input from our community and the needs of our staff, students, and their families. In these focus areas, the board appreciates that you have acted boldly in your first year and the district has benefited greatly from your actions. In reviewing the past year, the board identified key areas of success and restated our commitment to supporting areas where additional resources and attention are warranted. Superintendent Dye, your annual evaluation included 6 areas identified from the district Vision 2020 strategic plan. Educational excellence with equitable access and outcomes for every student, multiple pathways to student success, communication and connection with the community, diverse and world-class workforce, stable, sustainable stewardship, administrative performance. The board particularly appreciates your openness to inviting feedback from diverse stakeholders and a willingness to modify and adjust plans accordingly. This included diversifying the modes in which the district receives feedback. The board particularly appreciates this as members have heard positive feedback on these innovations from our community. Additionally, the board believes your reorganization of district leaders marks a positive and important step forward that will lead to enhanced practices and culture and improve the district's effectiveness as an organization, as well as your leadership and commitment to the district's Grow Your Own program that is positively impacting the district's ability to build and retain a diverse world-class workforce, and positioning Eugene School District 4J as a leader in expanding diversity in K-12 workforces. Dr. Dye, the board supports the work you have initiated during this academic year and continues to encourage you to enhance communication systems that build understanding and trust in the district's operations and decision-making. The Eugene School District 4J Board of Directors considers the district fortunate to have you as its leader. We look forward to ongoing partnership as the work you have begun this year continue to bear fruit in the form of excellent educational opportunities for our students. In completing this evaluation, the school board would like to thank you for your service and would propose amending your contract, extending it as agreed upon. With that, it's up to us now to approve this evaluation. Is there a motion? Gordon?
I move that we approve the evaluation.
Is there a second? Alicia? So the motion is to approve the evaluation and Alicia seconds it. All those, is there any discussion? We're going to suggest a friendly amendment that we include wording that acknowledges amending Superintendent Dye's contract as agreed upon.
I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
You don't wish that? Okay, so the motion is to approve the evaluation and amend Superintendent Dye's contract. Is there any discussion? Alicia?
Just so everybody knows, we actually, in executive session, spent some time with Dr. Dye talking about performance and about what's been going well and where we might want to build the focus. So now just coming in full. Thank you for the year and your work.
Are there any other questions or comments? All those in favor of approving the evaluation and amending Dr. Dye's contract, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. The motion passes unanimously with ayes from Meyer Rossa, Alicia Hayes, Gordon Laker, Kirthi Hasija Kaufman, Judy Newman, and Michelle Schill.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate both the acknowledgement of the work that the team's done and then your recommendations and direction on areas that we need to focus on moving forward. Very helpful.
Next up, we have a partnership with EPD and Dr. Guy, you have the floor.
Thank you. We have discussed a couple of different times, my desire to get your approval to re-engage EPD on what a formal partnership might look like. I've spoken with folks from EPD and some folks here in preliminary conversations in an attempt to answer some of the questions that you had posed at the last meeting. Specifically, are we looking at going back to a time in which we had uniformed armed police officers stationed in our schools? That's not at all something that we are interested in, nor frankly is it something that EPD is interested in. We don't want to go back to what was in place in the past. We want a formal partnership that acknowledges the changes in the district and the changes in the community. We and EPD don't even really want to refer to them as SRO, school resource officers. We want to build a program in partnership with EPD that focuses on youth support. So it'd be a youth services detective or a youth services officer. We don't want the police constantly assuming an enforcement posture within our schools. And they don't want to just be called upon when somebody has gotten in trouble or somebody thinks that somebody has done something wrong. We want to take a look at what more effective programs look like in the districts and other municipalities where there is a networked approach to building protective factors for young people. That includes partners that we now have like OSLC and Cahoots and SAS and Ophelia's Place. More of a focus on mental health professionals attending to the mental health needs of students, administrators attending to violations of the student code of conduct, working on restorative practices, not leaning on a uniformed police officer as another administrative person in the district. We do know that we, despite their best efforts, don't get the type of support that we would have with formal partners with EPD. We'll get the patrol officers that are available at any given time. And they may be well trained in developing the appropriate responses, trauma-informed responses for students of a particular age, but they may also not have that training. We would have a say in the type of training that those officers get. They would be stable. We would have a say in how they present in our schools, whether they come as uniformed or not. We would have, I believe, we would be able to implement a lot of the things that we have learned in the past that have been problematic for members of our community and been problematic for them as a department. I believe that that is a response to the questions that were posed, but I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have. And again, this is not, will we bring police back in schools, but do I have this board's authorization to return the proposal of what that partnership might look like?
Are there any questions or comments, Gordon?
Thanks, and thanks for that clarification. Like I said, I'm good with the conversation being pursued. For me, the things that I would want to make sure, and I think we talked about this last time, is that they not be uniform, not be based in schools. And also and maybe this is part of what has to be figured out in the conversation, is my understanding is that there are things that SROs used to do that we don't want new people to do. Basically, we don't want to end up with something that should be handled by school staff or ends up becoming a criminal justice thing. And that we need to define a clear line between what things they should be doing and what they shouldn't. And my understanding is that your thought was that primarily what they should be doing is what some police would be doing anyway. And this is just ensuring that the police would be doing it anyway, but ones who we have chosen and trained and are familiar with our system. But so for me, I'm good with the conversation going forward, but want to make sure that one of the things, for what I asked, that one of the things that comes out of that conversation is a clear line demarcating what's the purview of these people and what's not.
Yeah, that was something that was explicitly spelled out in the CJ report, that there was a lot of ambiguity about what our SROs did on a day-to-day basis or a year-to-year basis. And when I look at the MOU that we had that probably was rolled over with some minor changes, it was rather vague. When I look at memorandums of agreement between school districts in our state and their local police department that have youth service programs. They're very articulate in terms of this is the role of administration and this is the role of a youth services officer. And there's the type of distinction that I think adheres to the spirit of what you're saying. Very, very clear.
Are there any other questions or comments? I myself didn't hear. The one thing I didn't hear about was the one thing I asked about, which I'm hoping we can have if we move forward with this directive, that we can have a commitment to exploring examples of partnerships that don't necessitate us, a partnership that is that doesn't necessarily mean we contract and use our funds to have a officer on call. I'd like to see if there's any examples where partnerships, what we are describing to me sounds like there's room for it to be mutually beneficial, and I want to make sure that we're looking at options that don't necessarily bring an officer under the category of whether it's contracted or not from a public perception as being an employee at 4J. So I would love that to be incorporated into the conversation. I'd like to see if we can find examples, not just in the state, but across the country, where the relationship has been reimagined in a way that really is outside of the box. And I had mentioned before using funds to participate in PD with EPD so that a larger number of their folks that do show up would be prepared to deal with youth and would be prepared to deal with youth of a diverse background. That's just one example, and I haven't done research, so I don't even know if that's something that's possible, but that's the kind of thing that I want to make sure that we are exploring beyond just models that include a variation, even if we don't call them that, even if we take the uniform off of them, even if we house them somewhere else, we're still formalizing a relationship with EPD in a way that the community can see it as a person who is a Eugene Police Department officer that is employed by 4J. If that's where we end up, that's a different conversation. I just would like the work to be put in to understanding all different kinds of programs. Gordon? Judy?
I think many of my concerns have already been expressed. And I just want to clarify, I think Superintendent Dyer asking us for permission to go ahead to pursue looking at options, and we'll get a chance to discuss some of the findings before a final contract or decision is made. Is that true?
Some of you will, yes.
Okay, because I definitely agree, and I think I said last time that I like the idea of looking to see other successful options, so.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that I emphasize, I nor anybody else in the conversation think that going back to what we had in the past is the best way to move forward. There's some really great ideas. There's already been conversations with a number of students, not formal, anecdotal, and we'll need to go through that process again as well. But the best way to move forward is not to return to the past.
Gordon?
Well, as one of the people whose opinion can be effectively ignored, because I won't be here when the decision gets made, I did want to just weigh in to lend my support to what Maya said, which I hadn't really thought about before, but it's just urgent. I want some change in that I vote on this motion, but I think that when we had SROs, we were spending something like $400,000 or $500,000 a year on those 4 positions. If it turned out that for that amount of money, we could do training on a scale that we could be confident that whoever showed up had the kind of training and connections and approach that we wanted. From my point of view, that would be very attractive. So my urge is just to as to that double down on my side to include that, the exploration of those kind of things in the conversations about what the possibilities are.
Judy, I know you have your hand raised, I'll go after you. Just to add on to my concerns, with the numbers that former chief of staff Carrie Help shared with me at the time that we were exploring discontinuing or not renewing the contract with BPD. A first year teacher compared to a first year SRO, the SRO earned 63% more than a teacher. That's the kind of thing that I'm concerned about in terms of the public feeling as though we're making responsible decisions and prioritizing and not prioritizing police officers over our own staff in terms of fiscal compensation. And when we talk about a detective level person, I can only assume that they earn a significant amount more than a first year SR. So I guess I'm just gonna say it out loud, I will support this happening, but if we don't have even just a handful of, this is happening somewhere else that doesn't include this standard that involves a district paying the police department to do what the police department should be doing. I'm gonna be asking you to go back to the table to look for some. It's just where I stand. Not only one person, but I have a hard time moving forward with a model like that without having explored something significantly different. Right, Michelle?
I haven't looked at the sea change report in a while, but I did review it very carefully when it first came out. And we also had a presentation on the equity advisory of discipline consultants. And there is a history of students of culture, students of color, in addition to staff of color, not feeling safe in schools. I do not see how working with or including EPD in solutions would increase feelings of safety. I would much prefer to invest time and energy in looking at alternatives that would support mental health and support marginalized community.
Kirby?
Sorry, I was unmute myself. I'm like going back and forth between screens. I agree with Michelle on this. Like, I think it seems like we're kind of just doing the same thing we're already doing in some regards, which is calling for intervention. We need it. One thing I've talked about this whole past year, which is like we spent so much time looking at ways to like solve a problem before, like once it becomes a problem, and less time dealing with getting to a point before it becomes a problem. And that's where I think we should be focusing on too, which is like, how about we start looking at some of the root causes and figuring out programs in terms of the multiple ways that we can be looking at interventions and getting to a point where we don't have to be calling in officers on a regular basis, and especially for those marginalized communities. So that's where I think that our focus should be. And like, I mean, I feel like this program is just a reiteration of what, to a certain extent, we've already been doing. But I feel like we just keep putting band-aids on the problem And then hoping it's gonna like lessen year over year over year, and then keep finding solutions that are like more partnerships and more things without actually focusing on what is getting these kids to be in those situations in the first place. So that's my feeling around this entire partnership.
Any other questions before somebody makes a motion? If somebody makes a motion. There's no motion on the table yet. Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion? Lisa, you would like to make a working on it?
What would it look? Just trying to figure, sorry, yeah, just trying to figure out, your recommendation is the superintendent recommends that the board provide feedback on key items they wish to see incorporated in a reimagined partnership with EPD and direct the superintendent to return to a meeting with a contract for renew and approve no later than August 9th. So that is what the superintendent has asked for. So I would move that we move forward with that reimagined partnership for the new board to look at what that contract could look like and make changes and any changes they would like. That makes sense. Yeah.
Is there a second? Okay, seconded by Judy. So the motion is for Superintendent Noddick to take our feedback and continue exploring options and bring a contract proposal back to us on August 9th. I think we have a meeting on the 2nd.
No later than.
No later than the 9th. Okay. And seconded by Judy Newman. Are there any questions?
Can I speak to?
It's your motion. You get to go first. It's your motion.
Just really appreciate hearing what people's concerns are, and I appreciate Dr. Byler those as well, and that that those get passed on. And I would encourage the new board to take a listen to this part of the conversations. There were some good points made about how best to make this happen, or to make it happen. So just want to move it forward. Tell Dr. Ty take those suggestions in, and then bring it back to a new group of folks that will have a chance to ask questions and see where they improve things.
Gordon?
I just wanted to say that I came in totally supportive of this, and then was basically convinced by Kirby and Michelle. And I'm only here for this meeting, so the new board can obviously decide to go forward on this, but I'm not going to be supporting it right now. Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I'll put myself in the queue. I don't see any hand raised. I also can't support it as it stands now. I would prefer to have a bit more of a timeline and to have some options of various program ideas come to us and then direct the superintendent to make a contract proposal separate from, or a contract proposal based on the feedback around a variety of tangible program options.
Do you want to make that in front of them? Or
We can make it I'm happy, I offer it to you as a friendly amendment, but it's kind of changes the bulk of it. I would just like to add another step. I would like to, no later than August 9th, to come back with a range of different types of program options for us to consider. Will you take that friendly amendment?
Absolutely, because I think that needs to happen or if we were still here, that we would need to do that, we need to look closely. So I really never intended that it was like it was a done deal, it was to bring back that discussion. So I am fine with that, that clarity or friendly amendment, however you want to do it.
Judy, you
I also think that was what I was expecting. That's why I asked my question, if we would have the chance to hear what your research found out. So I think if the amendment makes that clear, then I'm definitely think that wording makes it clear, the intent.
Okay, so then to restate what we're considering is directing the superintendent to take this feedback and bring back several different types of options for possible relationships with EPD. And I even say several possible program options for maximizing safety by August 9th, for us to then consider and direct the superintendent to develop a contract proposal from those.
Like they started doing that like a year ago. Are we back now? Okay, so I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the superintendent's creativity and diligence on this, and I believe that we're all aiming at the same thing. So I just wanted to offer my appreciation and support. Thanks.
Sorry to interrupt, but Maya, the Zoom froze right in the middle of your motion.
Yeah.
Well, it's not my motion, I'm just trying to restate.
Or it froze right in the middle of your
So
last word. So I apologize for the interruption on Robert's rules.
So we are currently considering directing the superintendent to take our feedback and explore and bring back several program options for maximizing safety for our students. And from those, the new board will consider those and then direct the superintendent to develop a contract proposal or not. I mean, assuming that something sounds exciting. So it adds another step. Instead of early August getting a contract proposal, early August, we hear about different programmatic approaches. Superintendent Dunn.
I want to make sure that I ask this question so I know what to do between now and then. Different programmatic options other than EPD or different programmatic options alongside EPD. I'm not sure if we were looking for a partnership with EPD. I'm not sure what a different programmatic option would be. I'm not trying to be fake or cheeky. I just want to make sure that I know what to do between now and then.
So I'm hoping that if we're looking at districts, not only in Oregon, but across the country, that we can see some examples that are more than hiring a representative of the police department to serve as an employee of our district through contract. And different ways that might look. For example, you've already moved away from the traditional SRO model to talk about a non-uniformed detective who's not housed inside of a school. I'm hoping that there's more than two options regarding the possibility of engaging in partnership with EPD. And if there's not, then that's what we find out on early August. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Okay, well then, all those in favor of directing Dr. Dye to take our feedback and bring back several program options for us to consider, for the next board to consider. And then directing him to create a contract proposal from there. Raise your hand and say aye. Here, raise your hand, raise two, okay, that passes unanimously with 6 ayes from Kirby Hesija Kaufman, Alicia Hayes, Myra Russell, Wayne Maker, Michelle Shu, and Judy Newman. The next item on our agenda is to approve resolution of complaint. Would somebody like to make a motion? Gordon?
This is regarding a complaint of April 13th, which I understand that the consensus of the board when this was discussed in executive session. I wasn't there, but my understanding is the consensus was to dismiss, and so my motion is for that complaint to be dismissed.
Is there a second? Okay, so Judy's hand first. Gordon moves to dismiss the complaint issued on April 13th, and Judy Newman seconds that motion. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of dismissing the complaint issued on April 13th, raise your hand and say aye. Okay, that motion passes unanimously with ayes from Michelle Shu, Gordon Lafer, Kirti Hesija Kaufman, Myra Bassa, Judy Newman, and Alicia Hayes. With that, we get to our last item for action, which is to organize the board of directors for the 2023-2024 school year, electing chair and vice chair. Is there, Gordon, agree? Is there a motion, Gordon?
Yes, I move that we elect Myra Bassa as chair, and that we recommend to the incoming board the election of Jenny Tronick as vice chair. It's just that we can, my understanding is legally we can't elect somebody who's not currently a member, so, and they have to, no matter what we do, the new board has to vote to either approve or not approve whatever we vote on tonight, but so that's what that means, that's my proposal.
Are you amenable to splitting those into two motions again?
Sure. So then the first motion would be to elect Myra Bassa as chair.
So Gordon Lafer moves to elect Myra Bassa as chair. Is there a second? Michelle Shu seconds. Is there discussion? Alicia?
So I appreciate us wanting to get something done for the new board, that gap in leadership we don't want. But I also really appreciate and harken back to when there was a belief, which wasn't even true, that the board was going to hire a superintendent, and all the importance of setting the tone with the new board. You know, superintendent and chair are very different. But I've talked to the members of the new board, and I committed to them that I wasn't going to make their leadership decision. That I thought that it was really important that they make that decision, because they're coming from a board that only right now, there's only 2 people here that will move forward. And that affirming leadership is a real important way that you build cohesion as a board, and that they should have that opportunity. And I know these are 2 separate motions, but even the fact that we would put someone's name forward and not have that board have a chance to even decide just seems wrong to me. I want you to know if this passes, I will obviously be disappointed. But if it doesn't pass, I would like to be able to make the motion that Maya stay as chair. I think that consistency in leadership is important, and that in July, I would go for August, but people feel more comfortable that first meeting in July, that choice be given to those new members. So appreciate your service, Maya, but I would like your new board to not just affirm you, but I would like your new board to be able to vote for chair and vice chair.
Judy, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I was coming into the meeting tonight thinking I would like to make a motion to ask you to continue to be chair until the first meeting in August, which is, I think, what our statute or policy says we need to establish leadership. But because I really would like to hear from the new board, and it might play out exactly this way when they're all seated, but I think it would be important for all seven of us to have that conversation as a new board and get off to a good start. That would be my preference. And as long as you would be willing to stay on, there would be a different motion for sure.
I mean, this is, it's either in our policy or maybe you're in which I think or some of it is actually in law, but that we vote now and that the new board either agrees with that or disagrees with that. I don't think there's any question that the new board has the power to pick whatever leadership they want. If they come in and they say, no, we don't want Maya, we want to pick something else, or no, we don't want to take your choice, Maya, we want to start from scratch. Maybe we'll end up with Maya, or maybe we're not. Obviously, they have that power. And I don't think we can say, so, but what our working group would say, and certainly what's happened every year that I've been here, when there have been new board members elected and not, is that the old board votes, and then the new board either agrees with that or doesn't. So I guess that's why I would support doing it this way. The new board obviously has the power to do whatever it wants, but for us, I think it's worth us giving the guidance based on everything that we've experienced and that we know, and that's why I'm proposing this. Thanks.
Kirby?
So I'm in two minds about this because I 100% support Maya to not only stay on till August, but for the remaining year, however she wants to remain chair. I would like with zero hesitation. I've always struggled with assigning job assignments to people who don't get to decide for themselves on those. And Gordon, I get you with Don, like we can't actually make that, and the board has to vote on it too. So I'm still like, I am struggling with this one because like I 100% like don't want to have any holes like barred on supporting Maya on staying on there too. So I'm wondering like what that transition plan looks like. Like can we like put that in place and do that and make sure that like the board does get to at least vote on it to keep it, or like that's just the thing on there, because like I think it's extremely important that we have consistency across it, because I know for sure when I came on, like having that piece across it, and I think you're frankly amazing and you've done an amazing job on here too, and like I would like keep you on forever if you could do that, and I would support the other board for doing that as well too. But I would have hated to come on and somebody have given me work that I didn't agree to do either. And I know Jenny is going to be amazing if she does take it, and I love her too. So I just is mostly like we just had an election, and like I just am I struggle with that, as you guys know, with like just making sure it's something when we're agreeing to policy and we're agreeing to a culture and we're agreeing to these kinds of pieces and things that we're setting up, but like job assignments is a little bit different. So I am struggling with this, but I also can be persuaded.
So we're gonna clarify that, Kirti, the only motion on the table is about chair for now. But I do understand that the way it was worded, it included Jenny, but that's not for now. And I see Gordon has hands raised and then JD.
So I just want to clarify that the law says that the new board has to decide on its leadership before or by the first regular meeting in July, which I think is July 5th or whatever it is, which means there's. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, that's. I would be happy to incorporate that into the motion and say that if that would make it any clearer to anybody and say that the motion is to elect Maya Rabasa as chair, that the new board will meet in July to either affirm that or change it.
Judy?
My understanding is that we have to vote on it by the first regular board meeting, which would be the August 2nd meeting. But we could look into that. And I would, yes, the new board could do something different, of course, whenever it's installed. But I think it's a different conversation if you're voting to undo a vote rather than to have the conversation about leadership in a proactive going forward way as a group, because I just think it would be harder to have a conversation if that was already set up for you. That was just a robust, good conversation among new board members. So that's why I think doing the plan of voting for it, whether it's in a July meeting or the August 2nd meeting, would be a more open conversation and discussion. And this is nothing, what I'm saying isn't not for Maya's leadership. It's about respecting a new board coming together, and maybe that would be a good first step to take together.
So just to clarify, our policy comes straight from Oregon statute, and it says that the board has to elect leadership no later than the first meeting, which is, my understanding is that the board forever has interpreted that to mean that it certainly can happen prior, which is why the standard has been the last meeting in June. Whether it's a year with incoming board members or whether it's a year where there's consistency, it's been the last meeting in June forever because of that reading of the statute. Oh, you have your light on. Alicia, go.
I was just waiting for you to finish. It is true, but we've never seen a wholesale shift like this where there's really just two of you that be voting that are staying on the board. And that we've,
there's 3 of us.
but there's only 2 years now. I know we had the name was confusing. So thank you for that clarification. So I think I would ask that we wait. The other thing is, Gordon, you talked about the fact that we have in our working agreement, technically, that affirmation that we affirm that vote. We never voted on a working agreements. That part of that this year, I don't think we ever got through our working agreements, just for clarification. And that's why I think this new board, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I promised these new board members, is that they would have a chance to voice their commitment and their support for the leadership that was chosen. And I'm fine if we are ready to.
I'm just gonna add that I really hope that we haven't set ourselves up to make promises that might not end up being fulfilled. That's what was promised to them to happen.
No, we didn't.
Does anybody else have anything else to add? Well, I'm gonna add something because this is all about me. It feels really awkward for people to be talking about me while I'm sitting here. And if I were to remove myself from the equation, I still would vote to put something in place now because of that ratification process that I believe Gordon and Martina brought into the into the working agreement several years ago. I would support extending the courtesy for the vice chair vote to the new board, if that's what people want to do as well. But I think that ratification process, we have to, that was added for a reason. And I also am excited for 4 new board members, and as well as nervous about maintaining some stability. So for me, that question of stability and the question of being able to get started on July 5th with a team, whatever it ends up looking like, feels really important. I don't think waiting until August 2nd will benefit the district at all. In fact, my understanding is that there's some important reasons for us to have leadership in place. There's things that need to take place over the summer. There's planning. There needs to be people available. So removing myself from it, I still would support it. And but that's not speaking to the next one. And it's really hard for me to have to even vote or speak to it. We're doing it that meeting. Any other questions or comments regarding the motion to elect Maya Rabasa for chair for the 2023-2024 school year? Gordon.
I guess that just in the interest of clarity and what Alicia said about the working agreement's not never been formally ratified, I want to just amend my own resolution to say we elect Maya Rabasa as chair and we direct the new board to meet in July to either ratify or change that decision. Or to meet, whatever, to sign before the first meeting.
Direct the board to do anything.
No, encourage, you have a suggestion?
Please, our board policy BCB says as provided in ORS 332.040, no later than the next regular meeting following July 1, the board shall meet and organize by electing a chair and vice chair from its members, so there's no need to direct.
Okay, I'm just stick with the original proposal and be like Maya Rabasa as chair.
Any clarification on that? So what Gordon was saying, I thought was that he was directing they affirm, is, what was that? And there's that I need something in the policy that said they affirm.
No, there's no reference to affirmation. I think that's
Okay, so in case there was any misunderstanding of the idea that what we're doing now would be that act and that the new board would not have a chance to do it, I guess I will amend the motion just to say that the motion is we elect Maya Rabasa as chair and that we invite the new board to vote before their first regular meeting to either confirm or change that decision.
So that kind of amends it. Michelle, are you okay with the amendment? I believe everyone except for Kirti has spoken. Well, Kirti and Michelle have spoken. You haven't spoken at all. So Michelle and Kirti still have the opportunity to take the floor. The rest of us need to make a motion if we want to continue talking.
As with many of our other issues, we have to make a decision today on this. It can't be delayed.
Maya,
Yeah, Kirti, you have one more comment to make.
Considering the timeline, I'm prepared to vote.
Excellent. All those in favor of electing Maya Rabasa to serve as chair during the 2023-2024 school year and inviting the next board to affirm or ratify that decision at the July 5th meeting, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The motion passes with 4 ayes and fails with 2, or passes with 4 ayes from Maya Rabasa, Michelle Shu, Gordon Laker, and Kirti Hoffman, and Kaufman, and nays from Judy Newman and Alicia Hayes. Gordon, do you want to present that second motion, or are you still trying to do that?
I still want to do it. I mean, I don't need to talk about it a lot. I think that this is just to make a recommendation, my motion is to make a recommendation to the new board. To elect Jenny Jonek as vice chair. I think, you know, a lot of people have talked about conflict and wanting to help the new board launch in collegiality and all that. This is the person I think has had the broadest support from all of the community. And you know, in addition to her many talents for that reason also. It'd be good, obviously it's a recommendation the board can take or reject, but that's another proposal.
Is there a second?
Sorry, need to interrupt, but Zoom is like doing things again.
We're looking to see if there's a second for Gordon's motion to make a recommendation to the next board to elect Jenny Jonek as vice chair.
Okay, because it kind of sounds like you're in that submersible.
Michelle has seconded it. So Kirky, can you hear me now? Michelle has seconded Gordon's motion to make a recommendation for Jenny Jonek to serve, to be elected by the next board on July 5th to serve as vice chair in the 2023-2024 school year. Are there any comments? Judy?
I feel really uncomfortable voting about someone who isn't seated on the board and giving direction to a new board before they have a chance to talk about it. So I can't vote for this. And again, it has nothing to do with Jenny. It's just bad precedent in my mind.
Gordon, you might be open to an amendment in the language of, instead of a recommendation, a vote of confidence for this board for Jenny.
Sure.
Okay, so the motion is to extend a vote of confidence for Jenny Jonek to serve in that position. Alicia.
Maya, have you or Gordon talked to Jenny about being vice chair? And no, did I understand? Yeah, just curious.
I talked to Jenny about it. The same way that somebody asked me to serve as vice chair.
Did you talk to any of the other new members
I talked to
about being vice chair?
I talked to Morgan Monroe.
And you asked them to be vice chair?
Yes.
So they've already,
No, I talked to, I had a conversation with Morgan Monroe about that we were gonna have to elect leadership.
but you asked Jenny to be vice chair.
I asked Jenny if she would be willing to do this. Which was how it was done when I was elected vice chair.
Yeah, but you were. Call for the vote.
Are there any other comments or questions? All those in favor of issuing a vote of confidence for Jenny Jonek to serve as vice chair for the 2023-2024? But to be elected on July 5th. All those in favor of issuing a statement of a vote of confidence for Jenny Jonek to be elected on July 5th to serve as vice chair of the board for the school year 2023-2024, raise your hand and say aye. All those opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The motion passes with ayes from Meyer Bassa, Gordon Lafer, Michelle Shu, and Kirti and Cedric Hoffman, and nays from Judy Newman and Alicia Hayes. There are no items for action at a future meeting. Are there any suggestions by the board for consideration of items at future meetings? Okay, in that case, there will be a special meeting for incoming board members to take the oath of office on July 5th at 7 p.m. Where we will also have an election for the vice chair position. The first meeting of the 2023-2024 school year will be August 2nd at 7 p.m. This meeting is adjourned at 10:59. Congratulations, Alicia, on wrapping up your prolific career.
Bye, you guys. Stay in touch and hugs from a distance.